Federico Fellini's 8.5 is widely recognized as one of the greatest and most influential films in the history of the medium. Hailed as an instant classic upon its release, it was perhaps the crowning achievement of the halcyon days of early 60s European art house cinema that so influenced the subsequent American New Wave. The movie is an impeccably photographed mix of metafiction, surrealism, cultural critique, and sexual provocation, and also has hanging over it a clear status as artistic mission statement for, of course, Fellini, but also Italian cinema, as well as auteurism itself. Its premise: a world-famous director scrambles to think of an idea for his highly anticipated next movie, while simultaneously becoming lost in memory and fantasy as he wanders around a dreamlike health spa. This should be a recipe for the least relatable main character of all time. However, Guido, the film's analog for Fellini, is anything but. For all its stylistic and intellectual loftiness, 8.5 packs in endless moments of humanity and psychological quirk. In fact, perhaps the most undersung aspect of its influence is how much more personal it showed filmmaking to be. It's a cliché to say a movie like this is so totemic that it makes talking about it daunting. What could we say about this towering classic that hasn't already been articulated? And yet, perhaps most out of all canonical films, 8.5 strangely seems to have the opposite effect on many filmmakers. For some, the work is less a definitive statement in and of itself than an invitation to a dialogue. And for three key new Hollywood figures, Paul Mazursky, Bob Fosse, and Woody Allen, when they were each at the absolute peaks of their powers in the film industry, what they wanted to spend their respective creative capital on was making their version of 8.5. And you thought it sounded pretentious the first time. Mazursky's Alex in Wonderland, Fosse's All That Jazz, and Allen's Stardust Memories are far from the utter perfection that 8.5 exudes, but none of them are anywhere close to being artistic failures. On this very unusual episode of Kale Your Idols, and yes, that was a reference to the musical 9, we aim to compare and contrast what each director got out of Going Fellini.
Welcome to Kale Your Idols, a new Hollywood podcast with your hosts,
Sam Ludwig
and Elena Gibson. This is a podcast about film. Primarily, we discuss movies, directors, actors, and writers known for their work during the new Hollywood era of studio filmmaking that began in 1967 with Bonnie and Clyde in The Graduate and pretty much ended in the early 80s with One from the Heart and Heaven's Gate. In this episode, we discuss the wide-reaching influence of the famed European art house film 8.5. Okay. It is daunting to talk about 8.5, given that it is considered one of the greatest films of all time, which I don't know if I could say that I think it's the greatest film of all time. I personally think it's impossible to ever choose a film to represent the greatest achievement in cinema because you can do so many different things with cinema. However, I do consider it an absolute masterpiece and possibly one of the most influential films and important films of all time, especially in the world of art house cinema.
If I can briefly ask you a question, because this is a movie that is a maximalist work. It's got a lot of different things in it. At one point, Guido's questioned about a bunch of the random stuff that he wants to have happen in his movie, and he says, you prefer a movie where nothing happens? This movie is the definition of let's pack it all in as much as possible. Let's try and speak on as many different levels of society, to the personal, to the artistic, to the religious, to the whatever. What do you think this movie might be missing? Is there anything that you think this movie sort of leaves out that might prevent you from thinking that it's one of the greatest movies of all time?
Well, the fact that this isn't really saying that it's missing something in particular, but I find it very annoying, despite the fact that I think it's a masterpiece. It's very annoying. So I think that kind of prevents me from considering one of the greatest movies of all time. And it's not great towards women. I hate to be cliche, I guess. I feel like I'm always bringing up the female perspective, and I do hope y'all view me as having more perspective than just being a female who likes film. But I can't help but bring it up. Like, Guido, the main character in 8.5, is constantly being bugged by women at every corner. And he self-criticizes the way he's viewing the women, but he's still portraying them as annoying. And we'll talk about the women thing a bit later.
Oh, I think you're right. We might find time to get some discussion about that.
We will dive into it for sure. But those are just the things that annoy me about it.
I guess my question is, do you feel like it's, because, you know, you can not like whatever it has to say, but, like, do you feel like there's things that it's glaringly missing? Like, you wish that it had do you feel the movie is unemotional or, like, boring or whatever?
I do feel like it's a little unemotional. Like, it's dealing with somebody's inner thoughts, so you'd think that it would be pretty emotional, and it's even dealing with thoughts of suicide, but yet I still find it cold and unemotional. It's not showing genuine human connections.
Oh, I see. Now here, I don't know, because I understand what you're saying, that obviously it's a movie that's meant to be him searching deep into his soul, and he has moments where he's reliving his old traumas, but they're also nightmarish in a sort of surreal way, and it's not exactly like you're really fully put in the body of the little boy that's inside Guido. But I think there's a lot of moments where, I don't know, like, especially with him and Louisa, this is a real depiction of a real marriage between real people. Now, it's a lot of people suppressing stuff, but I do think there's some moments of that in there. That said, though, I sort of brought this up because I would kind of say if there is something that the movie is missing, it is a little cold.
Yeah, I personally love the cathartic experience of being drawn to a moment of intense emotion while watching a movie. I don't need that from all my movies. I love lots of movies that are more cold. But if I'm picking what I think is the greatest movie of all time, it will have a strong emotional component, I believe. I would be way, way, way more likely to pick La Strada as one of the greatest films of all time. And La Strada is another movie by Federico Fellini, the director who made 8.5, but it's a much more emotional film.
So you recognize its importance, but you think maybe that has to do with, like, the formal experimentation of it, the brilliant, like, it sort of was there first.
No, I'm not even going to say that it just happens to be so great and influential because it got there first or something. I do genuinely think it is
holds up,
a fantastic film. Even all of the meta aspects of it. Meta has now been done a gajillion times in film, but this was the first film to do a meta thing like that, to my knowledge. I'm sure there are probably some other films out there that did it a bit, but even Pauline Kael in her review says that this was the first film to do that meta thing. And she questioned whether or not it works well in film.
Kael was not a fan of 8.5. Do you want to go right to this? Or?
Pauline Kael, the critic who our podcast is named after, Pauline Kael is one of the only people who didn't like 8.5 when it came out. It was beloved by critics and also surprisingly beloved even by American audiences. Yeah. People were worried it would be too artsy for them, but they loved it. But she basically thought it was a giant eye roll is how I interpreted her review.
You see, I could see it being, because the work to me, it's very esoteric, but I actually think it's incredibly populist. Like, it doesn't surprise me, really, that this movie struck a chord with audiences in America more than, you know, Nights of Cabiria or
La Dolce Vita.
Well, La Dolce Vita, I think, was kind of a breakout movie. But, like, La Strada, like, these movies that I think are truly great works that Fellini had already made masterpieces at this point. But they have a little bit more subtlety and a smallness, and 8.5 is so... I think this movie is pretty entertaining. Kael, I could see coming at this from a too smart perspective and being like, this movie thinks it's deeper than it is, but I think it's exactly as deep as it's trying to be. I think it's trying to have these abstract surrealistic elements. It's trying to have this thorough, rich, intellectual conversation happen in the movie. But I actually don't think I think this movie is in no way inscrutable. I think maybe it will confound some people, but it's really not that difficult to get. I think, even compared to a lot of, like, Lynch movies, I think are much more abstract or much less obvious what is being talked about and much less relatable. Like, all of the problems Guido has, you're losing hold of a project, you're disappointing your loved ones, being annoyed by your loved ones, but you also realize you're being a jerk. I don't know.
You're feeling guilty maybe for not going to church.
Yeah, no, I think this is one of the ultimate examples of an extremely specific experience being made universal. And I think that's the goal, and I think it achieves it. That's its secret superpower, is it's a really palatable version of these lofty cinematic goals.
And just the execution of everything is so well done. Even though nowadays there have been a gajillion meta movies out there, I don't think they come close to the excellence in the execution.
The movie is so beautiful.
It's stunning, visually stunning.
All of the performances are really good. Every person in a Fellini movie usually has a very distinctive look and a very immediately graspable vibe. That's kind of the way that Fellini works with actors, is he treats them as puppets. He just sort of uses them for their look and their essence and moves them around in a way that it's visually telling you exactly what you need to know.
And the music is very iconic.
Set design is amazing.
So many open spaces.
You know this is all soundstage, right?
Cinecittà, right?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Fellini's first movie shot entirely on sound stages.
Yeah, I think actually this is a great transition. Let's take a second and rewind a little bit, because 8.5 is an Italian film, and we have not talked about Italian film that much on this podcast. Obviously, our podcast focuses on American new Hollywood films, which are, again, late 60s to early 80s films in the US. But as we laid out in earlier episodes, which perhaps not all of you may have listened to, I highly recommend you go back and listen to those early ones, because they set the stage for the influences on New Hollywood. The New Wave movements in Europe, in particular France, then also Japan is another place that had a strong New Wave movement. The films coming out of those countries in the 60s were very artsy and experimental, and they had a huge influence on American directors and inspired the new Hollywood. And so we have 2 episodes on the French New Wave, and we have 1 episode on the Japanese New Wave, and I highly recommend you go back and check them out.
So, but there is another strain that we have talked about many times.
Italian neorealism. But
Yes.
Before we even talk about Italian realism, let's go back even further in Italian film history. Let's start 1937, which is when Mussolini, under fascist Italy, built Cinecittà, which was at the time Europe's largest film studio, taking up 99 acres. So this is a government-funded film studio. This was under fascism. And the slogan of Cinecittà was, "Cinema is the most powerful weapon." It's very similar to Nazi Germany with Joseph Goebbels, where they viewed cinema as a tool for propaganda. Mussolini did the same with Italy, and so they funded a lot of national films. They also incidentally made a rule that any films being shown in Italy from other countries had to be dubbed in Italian, so that there were no subtitles. Partly because significant part of the population that had a tough time reading subtitles, but also dubbing it into Italian. It was a nationalist movement.
Yeah.
But because there was such a strong infrastructure in Italy, because of Cinecittà, for dubbing all films coming into Italy, even after the war was over, they had all this infrastructure, so they just kept dubbing films. They even dubbed their own films, because it was easier to get good quality sound that way, rather than having to record the audio on set while you're filming. And during World War II, they made a lot of fascist propaganda films. We won't talk about that much in this episode, or probably at all on this podcast. But after World War II came the golden age of Italian cinema, and that is Italian neorealism.
The golden age of Italian cinema, in the sense that it was the absolute worst possible time to be in Italy, because what Italian neorealism is born of is the devastation wrought on Italy by World War II. Fellini has a quote about what Italian neorealism was it started from the idea of work with what you have, and what Italy had was poverty, reality, and the absence of a dream. So that what they have is, they're like, look, we got some really fucked up looking people in cities, let's point a camera at them and get some pathos out of it, right?
And it involved not shooting in a studio. So it's shooting on location, using minimal lighting, using real people, like not actors, just really paring down everything, kind of more documentary style, but still fictional stories being told. And those movies are not my favorite movies because they're pretty darn bleak and a little slow and depressing, but very, very important for the history of cinema.
If you're looking for an example, think Bicycle Thieves, right? The story of a laborer who is desperate to make money to feed his son. He needs to get a bicycle for a delivery job. So he's just sort of in intense emotional pain, walking through the city, looking for like a bicycle to steal from another poor person. I mean, the bleakest tales of people living on the edge. Very often, it's a gut punch ending that shit's even worse than you thought it was. These movies are also not exactly my cup of tea in and of themselves. I do have a lot of appreciation for some works that are influenced by Italian neorealism, like The Battle of Algiers, Where's the Friend's Home? Almost any work that is showing real-life existence of a kind of person that you don't normally see on film has something that it's owed to this film movement.
Yeah, the key figures in this movement are Luchino Visconti, Roberto Rossellini, and Vittorio De Sica. I would say those are the three heavy hitters.
And Fellini.
Italian neorealism and Fellini. So Fellini became involved with neorealism when he co-wrote Roberto Rossellini's Rome Open City, which is a movie that I find very boring. And Fellini also co-wrote Paysan, which actually is a movie I really enjoy. So that's probably my favorite of all Italian neorealism films that I've seen. And Rossellini trusted him enough that he allowed Fellini to film some of the scenes in Paysan.
And we watched one of Fellini's neorealist works.
I Vitelloni?
I Vitelloni, yeah.
You'd consider that neorealist?
You wouldn't?
Nah.
Oh, why? Too actory?
Yeah, and it's...
What are his neorealist works then? And why did they call it neorealism if there was, what was real? Was there realism before it? I'm sure that there was, and I'm sure I'm being too glib about saying like this was so unseen before. But like, is this just the point in modernity where like everything's neo? They bust their load on calling something modernism in the 1920s, and they're like, oh shit, we didn't realize the world would keep going.
Yeah, but why is it the new wave and not just the wave?
Yeah, well, because I mean,
I think anytime you create a new movement, you put the word new.
Are we gonna have like movements that are backward looking?
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have some retro film movements.
Retro, like could you have like retro realism, or would you have like, oh, I'm going for an old-fashioned realism, old-timey wave?
Fellini, I've heard it said that his films, even his earlier films, are already considered transitional films, like from neorealism to whatever comes next, which the next big movement in Italian cinema, I believe, would be commedia all'italiana, which is comedy in the Italian way.
Well, that's still in the 50s, though, right?
And that started at the end of Italian neorealism, like late 50s, and then really became big in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. And think like Divorce Italian style. And so these were more middle-class stories that were funny, but they made fun of social issues like divorce and contraception and marriage of the clergy. And they also had a little bit of a feeling of like melancholy by commenting on social criticisms and the struggles of the everyday person. But alongside that, you had Fellini, Antonioni, Pasolini, and in my opinion, those three guys, Fellini, Antonioni, and Pasolini, are enough to constitute what I would consider to be an Italian new wave.
Yeah,
now, other people,
new wave.
I mean, a lot of other people do not feel like Italy had their own new wave, but I personally think they did.
To be clear, 8.5 is a movie about a director that is making the movie 8.5, more or less. You're watching a director make the movie that you're watching. And notably, you're watching a director fail at making the movie, as opposed to Fellini, who obviously succeeds wildly at making the movie.
That's true.
Like, and Fellini noted this all the time. I mean, by the way, you know, the Guido is obviously an analog for Fellini, but I don't think that there's a lot about his life that tracks completely onto Fellini's life. I don't know about the situation with the mistresses and the wife. I feel like Fellini's marriage was better than that.
Yeah, he's married to the actress in La Strada.
Yeah, I mean, they were...
I do not know that much about his personal life in terms of how his marriage was. I'm sure that there was some truth in the script.
I think you would be wrong to assume too much that it's like, this is exactly what he's like. Because, Marcello Mastroianni is not like Fellini. He's a handsome, strapping guy that all women would be throwing themselves at. Fellini is not like that.
No, it's funny. Whenever I picture Federico Fellini, I picture Guido, or I picture Marcello Mastroianni.
A frequent collaborator with Fellini.
So it's just funny that, like, his image comes to mind, and I don't even think, oh, no, that's the actor who played his stand-in in 8.5. I think that is Fellini, and he is way, way more attractive than Fellini, as you said.
Yeah, even though he's in tons of movies. I mean, he's like the Italian Marlon Brando. Yeah. I mean, he is a massive Italian icon.
Yeah.
But the idea for the movie, Fellini originally wanted to make a movie about, like, writer's block, or like a person trying to do a thing and failing at it. He did not think about it being a director or about it being analogous to himself or be about making a movie until after he had already tried to figure out what the essence of it was. So this movie did not start as like, oh, I'm going to make a movie about me and my process of thinking what the next movie is to make. He wanted to make a movie about writer's block, and then he realized, oh, this is like the situation that I'm in right now.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been an amazing breakthrough to have.
Yeah.
He must have known that he really figured it out.
But that's why I'm saying, like, I think that it's tempting to say, oh, this is an autobiographical piece, because of course he includes autobiographical elements, and of course it is about a situation that he's in. But I think that he's telling larger truths with this character than he's just revealing his own neuroses.
Yeah, that could be true.
Anyways, 8.5 is partly Fellini arguing with critics who are mad at him for breaking with Italian neorealism. Explicitly. That's what the critic character in the movie, / the writer.
Damier.
Yeah, Damier. A lot of this is him pointing to the response of La Dolce Vita and...
Which, La Dolce Vita... So, Fellini had a number of hits earlier in his career, but La Dolce Vita, which is the movie that came directly before 8.5, was a massive success, like a groundbreaking success. So right before 8.5, he had this huge, huge film.
Do you like La Dolce Vita?
Yeah, honestly, I always forget.
I don't really
about
remember it. I kind of conflate it with La Notte sometimes, I think.
Oh, I love La Notte. I know that I love La Notte, and La Dolce Vita for me just kind of... I watch it and I'm like, okay, and then I forget about it. It didn't leave an impression on me, but I probably only watched it once, so I should revisit it.
Same.
Yeah. It apparently is the reason why we have the word paparazzi.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun.
Yeah, but there's a lot of political underpinnings to Italian neorealism, and Fellini is avowedly apolitical.
Right.
But he doesn't... He said that he feels uncomfortable with how apolitical he is, but he can't really deny that that is how he feels. I mean, he's ultimately like, this is the kind of stuff that he cares about. Stuff like the life of the mind, the life of an artist, human sexuality, religion, and stuff. And there's all of these sort of cultural criticisms that Damier is throwing out. This sort of implication that, well, Fellini is obviously failing at his aims to critique the Catholic Church by portraying them in this way. Like, he's clearly aiming to satirize them, but he's only lionizing them. And Fellini is essentially saying, like, who said that I was trying to satirize them? You know what I mean? Like, where did you get the idea that I was trying to grind an axe against this? I'm just showing things that I'm interested in.
Yeah. I think one also big thing we should mention that influenced Fellini a lot with 8.5. Not only is he responding to critics' responses of La Dolce Vita, but he also was very interested in Carl Jung.
Yes.
And the book Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, which if you've seen 8.5, just the title Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, it's like, okay, I can see the influence there, obviously. And then a bit later, he also did LSD, which had a big influence on him as a surrealist filmmaker. But I'd say his interest in Carl Jung was a huge turning point where he decidedly went away from his neorealism influence and more towards straight up art house cinema.
By the way, did you know that the whole part where he's got the magic spell Asa Nisi Masa, that's apparently just a little play on anima, the Jungian concept of the female part of the subconscious and the soul and stuff. And so, that's a little Easter egg for what the movie's about. The movie is constantly telling you what it's about in both very subtle and also extremely on the nose ways. Like, for example, Guido's last name is Anselmi.
Okay.
And so I'm going to take a quick second here to talk about Saint Anselm and the ontological argument for God's existence.
Okay.
Do you know about this?
No.
Okay, well, I'm just so glad that I get a chance to bring this up on this podcast so we can record a little second of me getting your thoughts on the ontological argument for God.
Wait, can you first, though, remind me what the word ontological means?
What does it exactly mean?
Makes me feel less stupid when you have to look it up, too.
Okay, so it's about the nature of being. It relates to a branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, or showing the relations between concepts and categories in a subject area or domain. So this is simultaneously like one of the most brilliant and original pieces of thinking that any human being's ever had, and also so nonsensical and stupid that it could only have come from the mind of a philosopher.
Ooh, burn.
What the ontological argument for God amounts to. Okay, the first claim. God, by definition, is the greatest possible being that could ever exist. God is greater than all other things. There is the definition of God in this argument is the greatest thing that could be, okay?
I mean, I already have issues with that, but okay.
Of course, it's obviously like already starting from a place where you're assuming that that's a thing. But anyway, like it, so then now you have to sort of imagine a T-chart in your mind and place all things that do exist on one side and all things that could possibly exist on the other side, right? So all things that do exist, let's say Empire State Building, water, you and me, that's on the left, okay?
Okay.
And all things that could exist, right? Water that is magical, unicorns, an alien that is sitting in this room but is invisible right now.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, it can't have an impossible concept like a square circle, right?
Okay.
That is a thing that could not be. But you can imagine a unicorn.
Okay.
You can imagine magic, right? So, the argument for why God must... Here's where it gets tough. So, if you imagine God moving from the imaginary category to the real category, that would make him better because he's real. Because the argument is, if a thing is real, it's better than an imaginary thing, right?
That's a stupid argument.
I know, it makes no sense, okay. But the idea is, because definitionally God could not be made better, because the idea of God is it's the greatest possible thing, that's why God must exist. Because if God was imaginary, then it would be possible to be better if he was real. And so thus, because he cannot possibly be better in any context, he must be real. Do you understand this argument? Does this make sense?
Yeah, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I know.
I think you said
That's
it's
kind of
either
brilliant, though.
No, I don't think
it really is.
No,
No, this is like, honestly, like this was like
I feel like maybe you are
I'm saying as far as
misrepresenting
original
this.
I'm
I'm going to
truly
have to
not.
read it myself because I feel like maybe there's an aspect about it you must be
I swear to God, I understand.
explaining weirdly.
No, I swear to God, I'm explaining this correctly right now. And this was cited by philosophers for centuries as being like a knockdown argument for why God must exist.
Well, that's some stupid fucking bullshit.
It's ingenious, though, if you, like...
No.
Okay, but for a sec, like, obviously I'm telling you that it's absurd and makes no sense, but think about it for a second, like, how original of a thought is that?
No, I'm not impressed by it.
Okay. I think it's one of the weirder things that philosophy's ever put its mind to.
But philosophers are always doing mind games.
Okay, well, but obviously, though, do you see its resonance with the movie?
Can you explicitly tell me what you think its resonance with the movie is?
Well, I think that it has all to do with the imaginary world versus the real world. And, like,
sure.
What is better or what's worse? Who's God? Who's the creator? Like, is Guido God in this instance? He exists in a world of religion, but he himself is kind of his own religion. Again, it's not, it doesn't make full sense. It's not like they say his name a bunch of times and you're supposed to be thinking about this a lot. But his name is this, and it does evoke this thought, and it does have resonance to me. Like, I think it was a subtly nice little touch that they gave him that last name. I can't exactly explain everything, but I think that it is in the mix. And it was obviously in Fellini's head because he has these sort of stupid arguments for God.
Pauline Kael
Bouncing around
said
them.
in her review something about how she had this one critic friend who had boasted about how he went to see 8.5 like 8 times or something to try and piece apart exactly the relationship between the fantasy world and the real world. And she thought that was the stupidest thing she's ever heard.
Well, but I have to say, though, I watched the commentary track of this on Criterion, and it was actually a total fucking revelation. Every single shot, they have this person describing what's happening in the shot, like what is symbolically happening, and it all is just completely there. Like, every single shot is so packed with meaning, and like things pay off very subtly later on, like oftentimes in the background. There's just like sort of all, like a character will sometimes like come out in front of another character, and it'll be like, this is where Fellini is showing the importance of friendship versus lovers.
You're making me want to watch the commentary
You really
track.
should. I actually think it was very informative.
What if people watch the commentary track before they even watch the real movie?
I actually think that you could find it pretty interesting. I think people could do it. I think you can fucking do it. By the way, can we really quick talk about like the title?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think of the title?
I think it's very memorable.
The original title for the movie was The Grand Confusion.
Yeah.
8.5 is a way better title, even though it has nothing to do with anything except for the fact that it's the 8.5th movie that Fellini has made up to that point. It's technically his 9th movie, but he's counting shorts and stuff that he's done as a half a movie.
He had some shorts in the Boccaccio 70 omnibus film, which I've seen, and it's good. You guys should check it out. And I think he also co-directed a film, and so he's counting that as also like half a film.
We've decided to make this epic episode in which we're talking about 8.5 and then it's New Hollywood Descendants, and we're gonna have this come out in the middle of September.
I originally was going to have it come out in the middle of August, and Sam was like, no, 8.5 means it would have to be like 8 months in. That's like all of the month of August, and then an additional half month. So that's middle of September. So I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And then Sam, a week or two ago, was like, wait, why are we having it come out in the middle of September? And I'm like, oh, come on.
But the thing
your
is,
idea.
But the thing is that I'm right in that is the correct time to make it come out. It's just, it looks weird because like if you hear it's coming out in September, you're thinking 9, but that's the whole thing is that it is 9.
I'm glad that we explicitly said this. Otherwise, I don't think anybody would have fucking noticed that this came out in the 8.5 month of 2024. But we are pretty clever, okay?
Can we quickly talk about the musical now?
Yeah, Sam's burning with desire to talk all about 9.
Right.
I feel sometimes like you'd rather talk about 9 more than 8.5, actually.
A little peek behind the curtain here, which is appropriate since this is a movie about peeking behind the curtain. We attempted to record this podcast a little bit ago, and we were beset by a rather Fellini-esque chattering and noises by our neighbors and distractions.
And we were also in a bad mood.
We were in a weird mood, but also like it bugged you because I sort of went off on this extended 9 rant at the beginning of the show.
It made no sense to talk about 9 before we even talked about 8.5 at all.
No, fine, fair enough. But what I wanted to talk about is like watching 8.5 this time, and maybe this is why I'm being a little bit more apologetic for its emotionality or lack thereof. I realized how influential this movie was on me and my thinking about a lot of stuff. And obviously, though, what I'm talking about is the musical 9 more than the movie 8.5 in a way, because that was something that I did have a real relationship to as a teenager and did inform a lot of my thoughts about relationships, better or worse. And, we could sort of get into that because all that stuff is in the movie 8.5. But I really was just talking about 9 because that's the thing that I personally connected to. But
Did
I'm
you
talking
explain?
about the stuff in 8.5.
Have you explained yet what 9 is?
9 is a musical version of 8.5. What made me think of this right now is the fact that I am obsessed with musicalized titles of things. The Pygmalion becomes My Fair Lady. The Rainmaker becomes 110 in the Shade. You got to have a musicalized title. And just, there is no better example of this than 8.5 doesn't quite have 9, right? Okay, so look, I relate to this character. Okay, I admit it.
But do you relate to
Right.
the character in 8.5 or in 9?
One of the differences in a musical versus a movie is a musical has to be a slightly less abstract than a movie can be, right? A movie is told through visual storytelling, iconography, and a musical is mostly told through writing. You can listen to a cast album of a musical and pretty much get what's going on because the characters are kind of telling you exactly what they think, and they're sort of giving you an insight into their emotional life in a way that the movie 8.5 doesn't really need to because you're sort of seeing it already. And so that naturally, I think, leads a slightly perhaps more sympathetic portrayal of these struggles. And I also think, and the musical 9, its twist is Guido is literally the only male character, and all of the other characters in the show are women, including like his writer, his producer, the critics, like everybody is a woman, right? So for me, 9, or at least certain ideas in 9, like this was a depiction, yes, from a very male perspective, but I was never thinking of it in terms of like, this is only good for the gander, not good for the goose. But like, it's a depiction of a non-monogamous person. And what I relate to is the non-monogamous aspect where you have different parts of your life and you have different connections with different people, and those people bring out a different side of yourself. What I don't relate to, obviously, is the mother-whore dynamic stuff. This, to me, is very repressed, very Italian, a dichotomy that I don't have present in my life at all. I want it all mixed together. I want the mother to be the whore. I think, though, you're right. It's probably I'm more relating to the musical, which is portraying more of a situation where he is sort of in love with different women, whereas I kind of think in the movie he seems like he doesn't care about anybody.
Yeah. I did not relate to it, even though I am polyamorous.
The musical is also very explicit about 9 is the age at which Guido is a little bit arrested at. This is a story that's in multiple Fellini movies. Like, this was clearly the most personal thing, I think, in the movie. He had this experience with other boys where they went to this prostitute who lived in a cave or a small shack on the beach.
It's such an amazing scene in the movie. The way that when the boys are like asking her to do the rumba, and she just seems so grumpy and like, oh, fine, okay. And, they give her money and stuff. She's like, okay. And then as soon as she starts dancing, she just lights up, and she like clearly fucking loves it. She loves dancing while people are watching. And it's just an amazing scene.
After that, he gets sort of discovered by priests who then send him to this priest tribunal where little boys get scolded for doing sexual deviancy, and all of the priests in that scene are played by older women. The reason why he did that was he wanted to have actors of the right age, but all male Italian actors, like all non-priest males of that age, he would like, they've had too much life, they're too bloated, they're too sinful and stuff. He said the women actors of that age have the appropriate like stoicism and sternness.
And we've never sinned.
Exactly. It's this thing of like the seriousness of that sort of priest guiltily judging you could not be achieved in his mind with male non-priest actors.
That's funny, and also just is a perfect example of how he views women as so, so, so different from men in his movies.
Do you want to talk about women now?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Does this movie pass the Bechdel test? No, it doesn't. But are you really going to tell me that these aren't much more complex female characters that get a lot more interiority than just about any other foreign films?
They're not real characters. The wife is the closest thing to a real character, but the mistress is just this like silly, ditzy mistress who just wants all of his time and attention, and the ideal woman is obviously the ideal woman and not real. The wife is feeling very just unsatisfied by what Guido can give her. So they are, as I already said, they're just not real characters, and they're only depicted in relationship to Guido. And it's like they don't even exist outside of his world and his perception.
Look, Italian movies, Italian culture, very misogynistic, very retrograde. This movie is all about examining that this guy's being a piece of shit. He's shown to be a jerk. They're mostly shown to be right. I don't know. Like, I think that it's not the most misogynistic work I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I don't view it that way. He's got this harem fantasy, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yes, what do you think?
I'm absolutely not going to call these women complex. They all fit a certain role. You've got the nagging wife in the harem scene. She's like the perfect wife, but otherwise she's just like so disappointed in him and feeling like he's letting her down. And I guess she's not that nagging, but she is clearly like just very unhappy with everything he's doing.
As she should be.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's not like he's fun and she's being a shrew. Like, he's annoying and wrong, and she is right. I just feel like it's examining this guy's fucked up relationships with women, and I just think you're getting a lot more of the women's perspective than you typically do in movies of this era.
Luisa's obviously the best female character in this film, but I still don't think she's a great character personally.
You're right. She's the only one with real interiority.
Yeah. Like, everything that she thinks about is all in relation to being annoyed at what Guido is doing to their relationship. She doesn't have anything beyond that.
Well, but I also think there's a lot of stuff, like, you didn't feel like the marriage stuff in a general way was just very, like, a real portrait of people who've been married for a while in some ways? Like, I
guess in some ways, but it was also, he was just so fucking insufferable. He's like, Luisa, just have a little bit more patience with me, please. But it's not like he was at all trying to be better at all. So he has no right to ask for patience. And then immediately after he says that, fucking Claudia shows up and he's about to run away with her. Like, it's just, he's terrible. He's absolutely insufferable. I know that the film criticizes him. It's criticizing him by showing him be insufferable, but still, like, even the harem scene where he's criticizing the fact that he fantasizes about having a harem, he is this, throughout the whole film, just this calm, cool, and collected dude. And the women are all yelling or nagging or harassing him. They all want something from him.
As do all of the male characters.
Yes, every character wants something from him.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, I don't think that they're that much more one-dimensional than the male characters. Just the little moments where, like, he invites Luisa to come along to the spa. And she's so happy, but he, like, regrets doing it.
That did feel very real.
These are
it's
real.
Like, why are you doing that? But
yeah,
it's also like, you found yourself in that situation where you feel compelled to invite somebody along, and then once they come along, you're like, why the fuck did I do that?
Exactly. And that conversation that they're having in bed at night where, like, she's right, but she's also picking a fight, and he is being petty, but the things that he's saying are also true. Like, she doesn't really know what's going on with him. It feels messy in a way that is like real life.
This movie is all about Guido being the center of the universe. Yeah. And I think nobody else.
The women get more to do than the men.
Sure, but they're still not good characters.
The sister-in-law, the friend, and so I don't know. Like, I feel like you get a lot of different sides. I don't know. I think that
you get a lot of different flavors of what Fellini views as a woman, and what Fellini views as a woman is all in relationship to him as a man.
But it's like it's him as a director. Like it. Okay, so like
and a man.
But like La Strada, right? Like that's a movie that's about a woman. And it's a similar kind of thing where like the man's being shitty to the woman. But like, is that movie not giving her agency?
So I don't think that La Strada gives that female character true agency because she clearly has a mental disability.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And another movie, The White Sheik.
Knights of Cabiria, though?
I haven't seen Knights of Cabiria. I can't comment on that. But The White Sheik, which is a movie I saw recently, another Fellini movie, is so delightful, so charming, so cute. I highly recommend you check it out. I mean, you know, just based on the title, it's not going to be the most delicate portrayal of other cultures, but it's also like not terrible either. I didn't think it was that cringy. It was really charming in my opinion. But the female character is this like innocent, clueless woman who just like wide-eyed the whole time, staring at the world and getting caught up in this whole life. And it reminded me a lot of La Strada in a totally different tone. Like La Strada's sad and The White Sheik's funny. But both of them involve these female characters who are very wide-eyed and just getting caught up with things happening around them. They get swept up into things and they're not really making decisions on their own. They're just getting swept into situations. So yeah, even those films, I don't think he's necessarily the worst director when it comes to female characters.
Godard
but
is way worse.
Sure.
Godard is like 10,000 times worse than
yeah, that's fine. Fellini. But that doesn't mean that Fellini's just going to get a gold star in comparison.
I think that it's exploring this person's relation. Okay.
I'm not saying that it is more or less misogynistic than Godard films. I'm just saying, as a woman, and I hate fucking saying that phrase, as a woman, but this film annoyed me because of the gender aspect and also just because it's portraying him as this like master of the universe situation, and that's just fucking annoying.
Do I think that it's inherently even wrong to like want a harem? No. I think as long as you're still letting them do whatever they want and you're not trying to control them. Like
I read reverse harem fantasy romance books. That's like what I search for when I look for my fantasy romance. So yeah, I think it's totally fine to fantasize about whatever you want.
I mean, do you want to quickly talk about the harem in and of itself?
Like, the harem scene did not bother me, except that they're all like screaming and yelling at him in it.
No, there's a turn that happens. At first, they're all like happy.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It's specifically a black character who rebels.
Yeah, sure.
It's supposed to comment on like racial rebellion being mixed with gender.
The black character is weird.
Yeah, I skimmed the script because I was
Yes.
kind of curious about the ending in the script, and it's like she's specifically described as black in the script. So they were trying to make a statement about that, but she's the one who leads the revolution of the women in the harem.
The rule is you have to leave when you turn 26.
That part was fucking hilarious.
Hey, Leonardo
I thought that
DiCaprio.
was really funny. She's like, I don't want to go upstairs. I'm
Yeah.
not that old yet. And she like lies about her age. And it's just really funny. Okay, so that joke leads me to something I wanted to mention. The tone of this film.
Mm-hmm.
So Fellini wrote a little note and taped it to the camera right next to the lens that said, remember, this is a comic film. So it is supposed to be a comedy.
It is funny.
And it is. And so I think that keeping that in mind, if you haven't watched it yet and you want to watch it, keep that in mind. It's supposed to be light. It's supposed to be funny, despite dealing with some big issues and some weighty philosophical concepts. Guido always has a song in his head. And he's always humming to himself.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. That's one of my favorite things about this performance. And this is a Fellini thing in general, is he's just so good at capturing moments where Guido is alone, doing a little bit to himself.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, there's the thing where he's hearing the buzzing sound and he's just moving his body along in time with the buzzing sound.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Or there's times where like he'll just move around a corner, like before he's about to talk to somebody and just make a little face to nobody. Obviously, this is a creative person thing, but it's also I do that. Like, and I think that,
But you're a creative person.
I guess. I mean, so you don't do that. You're never like fucking around with like.
I guess I do it a little bit.
Regardless of what it means, you would never see that in any other movie.
Yeah. He's good at capturing moments of characters doing stuff when they're like alone. That's just like funny. Like, for example, a part that both of us love is when Guido and Carla are in bed together. Guido's fallen asleep. Carla is reading a comic book and she's just suddenly laughs out loud, but then like hides the laughter just for a quick second.
Right.
She read something funny, and Sam does that all the time. Just like audibly laughing out loud to something they read on their phone, and it's hilarious. It's just a really cute moment.
That's also a callback, by the way, Donald Duck and comics. That's a reference also to the fact that Fellini used to draw comics.
Yeah, he was deciding between being a gag writer or a caricature artist.
Mm-hmm.
So comedy is like how he got his start.
Yeah, but also it speaks to his tremendous visual style. I mean,
yes, he was a talented artist.
He was the kind of director that would move actors' bodies and hands movements meticulously. He treated them like puppets.
The attention to detail in this film, it really pays off.
Yeah, and again, these were all completely constructed sets. Everything is made to look trippy. All the design of the furniture is semi-futuristic, semi-art deco. It's a spa, again, that they're at.
I wanted to say regarding the tone and trying to keep it light, the original ending for the movie was that Guido would be on a train with Luisa and he would have a flash of realization where he would see everybody in his life in the train car with him. And he would have this moment of realization about what life is all about and how he needs to make his movie about that. And he figured it all out. And then the fantasy disappears and he loses his train of thought about his inspiration. And it all fades and the train fades into darkness. People thought that was too dark of an ending and that it evoked suicide, the train going into darkness like that. And so he switched it to be the ending that it currently is. And I personally...
Where it does not just invoke suicide, where he literally
it shows
himself.
him committing suicide, but then, he gets back up and...
There's the parade.
I personally much prefer the ending that they actually... I obviously I can't know what that other train ending would have actually worked, like what it would have looked like if it had been realized in film form, but... I love that it doesn't end on his fantasy fading away. I love that it ends on all the people in his life holding hands, dancing together to circus music. I think it's just like a really delightful, really extreme, and I love it so much.
Fellini loves a big crowd of people.
And he loves clowns. He's really into clowns. I watched his made-for-TV movie called E-Clowns, and it's lovely. It's really cute.
It's all very circus-like, 8.5.
Yeah.
Like he's the ringmaster, and he'll go and visit a little silo that's the creative people he's working with, or he'll go and visit Domier, or he'll go and see screen tests, or he'll go talk to the wife or the mistress,
Yeah.
And he is attempting to control things, but it's all beyond him.
And shout out to the composer, Nino Rota, who did the film score and created that circus-like music that is so iconic. Some people say that the score to 8.5 is the one thing that makes the movie cohesive, which is not something I noticed. Fellini said about Rota, the composer, "The most precious collaborator I have ever had, I say it straight away and don't even have to hesitate, was Nino Rota. Between us, immediately, a complete, total harmony." He adored Nino Rota.
Also, shout out to Lena Vermueller, who was AD on this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some of her aristocratic relatives are featured as spa-goers.
Oh, I think there's a lot of cameos and references to famous Italian people that go right over my head.
Well, there's a lot of people who are sort of playing themselves. Like, there's that American critic guy who's got the glasses, who I think he's playing a version of himself.
Oh, okay.
Domier, that is played by a guy who's very much like that guy. And Fellini would kind of do this with people where apparently he would sort of build people into the thing that he wanted to use for a movie or two, and then he would sort of discard them.
That was also a criticism of Italian neorealism in general. Well, they would cast regular people
that makes
actors
sense.
And they'd have a brief moment of success and see what life was like not being impoverished, and then that life would fade away and they were back to their original life, and it was really hard for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe he got it from that then.
Little tangent, sorry.
It's not a tangent. Okay, you got any more thoughts?
Yeah, this movie really walks the line between being pretentious and genius. So there's this quote from an Italian critic, I believe, Mario Verdone, who said about 8.5, "It is like a series of acrobats that a tightrope walker tries to execute high above the crowd, always on the verge of falling and being smashed on the ground. But at just the right moment, the acrobat knows how to perform the right somersault. With a push, he straightens up, saves himself, and wins." And I really agree with that quote, because while watching 8.5, I am at every moment being like, this is so eye-rolly and pretentious, but at every other moment being like, but it's also fucking amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if I've brought this up before, but to me, pretentiousness means your reach is exceeding your grasp, right? You're aiming for something and missing, right? I don't think that just because you set a high goal for yourself, or your idea seems like it would inspire a jerk-off motion in somebody. I think pretentiousness basically means like a failure. And look, we're going to talk about several other versions of this tale. And by the way, we've only watched 8.5 right now. Well, we've seen the other movies, but for this, we've only recently watched 8.5. We haven't watched the other 3 movies that we're going to talk about.
I've never seen Stardust Memories, and I can't even remember if I've seen all that jazz. I may have only seen Alice in Wonderland at this exact moment. But don't worry. Obviously, I'll watch them before we record those segments. We are recording in piecemeal form.
Yeah, we're gonna pause. This is an experiment in podcasting, and we're trying out new forms, the way that Fellini was trying out new forms. So yeah, I think that it's probably some of those movies we will be seeing a certain pretentiousness on display, and a certain kind of like thinking that you're saying something deep, but not having the visual panache or the real deepness. Because again, this movie is genuinely deep. Like, they have intellectual conversations that are legitimately interesting thoughts. They're not just Godard's ramblings about Marxism, where I don't even understand what I'm supposed to be getting about this. But they have moments where a character is talking about something and you understand what it is, and it's still an argument that we're having about film now. Like that Catholic Church thing, that's like a depiction versus endorsement argument that we have about movies all the time now. This movie, it's never feels like it's not saying what it wants to say.
Yeah, I don't fully agree with your definition of pretentious, even if that is the technical definition. I think that the general usage of pretentious is currently based on that definition of pretentious.
And could you lay that out?
It's
what hoity-toightiness? What is it?
Yeah, intellectualism, like
intellectualism,
trying to exude intellectualism.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like you're trying too hard, kind of. Like things that exude intellectualism effectively are different than that.
I think this movie is trying to exude intellectualism. I think it succeeds, but it is still also trying. It is making an active effort. It's not accidentally exuding intellectualism. It's making an active effort to do it, and that's why I think it for sure is pretentious in my book, but I also think it is genius, even though it is fucking annoying.
I would call that ambitious.
Well, I call it pretentious.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have more times to discuss what this means over the course of every movie. Well, I guess we'll probably have to check in with this question every movie.
Yeah, we'll see. But Pauline Kael said about 8.5, this is the first and predictably not the last movie in which the director seems to be primarily interested in glorifying his self-imprisonment. Now, glorifying self-imprisonment is surely not the only aspect about 8.5 that's being parodied in the other films we're going to discuss, but it is certainly one of them. So 8.5, as we have already mentioned, was a highly influential film. Fellini's memorial service after he died was attended by an estimated 70,000 people.
Jesus.
So just imagine leaving a mark on the world like Fellini. One can only dream. I'm super excited. We're going to pause. We're going to watch... what are we doing first? Alice in Wonderland?
Alice in Wonderland. The order is Alice in Wonderland, All That Jazz, and then Stardust Memories.
Okay.
Ending up on some nice Woody Allen. We're now
Woody Allen.
2 movies away from our first major discussion of Woody Allen.
Can't wait.
Enjoy.
Can't wait. So we'll pause. We'll be right back to talk about some Mazursky. For you, it's not going to feel like a pause at all. It's just going to immediately start.
Just imagine that you're going to sleep in 3, 2, 1. And we're back, and we've removed your spleen. You don't like that? Sorry. And we're back.
It's the future. We time jumped.
Yes. It's several days in the future in 2024.
Yes, we have just finished Alice in Wonderland, watching it for the second time because we watched it. I don't know, how long ago was it when we first watched this movie?
It's certainly been 2 years, I bet, since we watched this movie. Don't you think?
Yeah, probably about that. Okay, Sam, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you were stranded on a deserted island, you could only choose 3 kinds of food to have for your time there for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
What kinds of foods would they be?
I guess I would have to go with ribs, strawberries, and bagels.
Bagels, really?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. Maybe
I don't
that
feel
sound
like you're that much of a bagel person.
I'm not much of a bagel person.
Like, you like them, but...
Well, no,
And you like blueberries more than strawberries. What the heck?
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not pretending to be Seth Cohen over here or whatever, but I like bagels. I was thinking bread, right? A kind of bread I need to bring. I didn't want to say, like, toast or, like, what's a kind of... I don't think I like a kind of bread. English muffins, maybe, but I feel like I would have bagels... I would be willing to have them more often than English muffins. Those feel like more of a treat. Bagels, yeah. What are you're questioning this? What?
Okay.
What kind of bread should I bring on the desert island?
No, it is a very personal question. You're right. I should not criticize your answers.
I think my answer is actually not even just personal, but it's good.
I asked this, obviously, if you've seen the movie, you know, because the main character, Alex, asks this question to a lot of other people in the film Alice in Wonderland, which is the next film we are talking about today. Why do you think he asks this question to everybody?
Well, do you have an answer?
Oh, me? I should have thought about this. Sushi.
Well, okay, so there's one kind of roll, or do you
Spicy tuna sushi rolls.
Okay.
And I would do those, like, mint chocolate chip ice cream sandwiches.
Timothy McVeigh over here.
And... well, I like bagels, too.
Oh, shit. But you think that's a more genuine answer coming from you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, fine. You can have bagels, Sonny. I'll take English muffins.
All right, fine. Deal.
Yeah.
So why does Alex ask this to everybody he encounters?
Well, it's because I think that you think that you're asking some random question right now, but it is, of course, all intricately tied up with a lot of things that he's dealing with right now, which is like the late 60s, one of Mazursky's key themes is sort of late 60s self-exploration. The Esalen Institute that he depicts in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. There's a lot of new agey sort of like, let's actually talk about our feelings and let's be a little bit weird and let's not feel so conformist, man. And this ties in with the rise of like theater games and acting teacher things, and I think it's a real like theater gamey actor studio-y thing that is where he's getting it from. And obviously Alex is a director. The main character, Alex, is a director. And I think that it's both kind of a weirdly new thing. I mean, I guess this is sort of like the Proustian 36 questions would be the first version of one of these kinds of things that when it made it into the popular culture. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
The Proust had the famous, like, these are the 36 questions that I, ask people. And it's stuff like this, where it's these sorts of conceptual questions that I really feel like work a little bit new for people. Like, because who does he ask? Jean Moreau or who?
He asks Jean Moreau. He asks his daughter. He asks his wife. He asks Fellini.
But Jean Moreau and Fellini, who are these great artists, they are like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's not a cute thing to talk about for me and other artists.
Jean Moreau answers the question.
She does.
Yeah.
But she's also the fictional version of herself.
Right. That was a good answer, Sam. I did not expect you to have so much wonderful insight.
We're going to get back into the theater game influence on this movie.
Yeah. So why are we talking about this? How much of an 8.5-esque movie is Alice in Wonderland? The answer is it is so 8.5 that Fellini is in the movie briefly in a cameo appearance, and they reference 8.5 directly multiple times. So the movie Alice in Wonderland is about a director who just made his first film.
Yeah, he could have called this movie 2.
That's true.
But that doesn't sound quite as ostentatious.
8.5 is the 8.5 films that Fellini had made before starting.
Yeah, and this is
8.5. So this would be 1.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, right. Because 8.5 is the 9th. Sorry.
But anyway, so it's about a director named Alex who has made one successful film already and is trying to decide what to make for his second film. And this is meta, just like 8.5 is, because it's referencing 8.5, directly saying, like, it's explicitly stating that it's an 8.5 homage. And Paul Mazursky, the director, has made one movie so far before Alice in Wonderland, and it was a hit. So,
but it still hasn't come out in the world of Alice in Wonderland.
Yes,
like the industry is all abuzz about it. Right. Everybody knows this movie is going to change the game. And by the way, the real life movie that is Bob and Carol and Ted Malice, obviously. Right. And that movie was the 5th highest grossing film of the year. A critical smash, Academy Award nominations for Mazursky and stuff. I mean, as successful of a first film as you could possibly have.
Yeah, they're not a perfect correlation. Like, Alex is obviously a stand-in for the director Paul Mazursky, but some people think maybe Alex is more of a stand-in for Hal Ashby.
Yeah, he does look like him.
Yeah. And Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, Mazursky's first movie, which we have an episode on, and I highly recommend checking it out. We have decided to champion Mazursky as kind of our guy who we want the film world to, revisit.
He's probably the undersung auteur of New Hollywood.
Yeah. But Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice is kind of a light, funny movie. It's very entertaining. It deals with important stuff, but it's very light. Whereas in Alice in Wonderland, they describe Alex's first movie as heavy.
Well, yeah. I mean, the producer says it's just about the heaviest thing I've ever seen. And I don't think that means that... I don't see, yeah, we got to get into a question of what heavy is, because heavy is a word that comes up a lot in this movie.
It is, yeah.
And the scene with the producer, who is played by director Paul Mazursky, brilliantly.
Yeah, great acting.
The New York Film Critics gave him a supporting actor nomination.
Pauline Kael, she liked aspects about this movie, but overall didn't think it was great. She had good things and bad things to say about it, but she said that the film's greatest triumph is that scene where Mazursky plays the producer.
Yeah, because it's it feels like a pretty sympathetic portrayal of both of the men in the scene.
Yeah.
Like, it's a scene that's all about this producer. He begins the meeting with Alex basically giving up all power. He says, look, I saw your movie. I think it's just about the heaviest thing I've ever seen. I want to work with you. I have lots of money. I want you to take my money. I've got a lot of ideas, but I really want to do what you want to do. I need you. And so then immediately Alex goes on the defensive of, like, trying to test his taste. Because the whole scene is all about, like, what does it mean to have good taste? Like, they're I just need to pat myself on the back for a second here, okay? Like, there's the moment where there's a much is made of this Chagall that's on the wall. And in my brain, I'm just like, all right, Chagall was so central to the art discourse in 1970 and 71 because of, like, Follies, the Sondheim show in my head, like, where they have, like, I'm just like, oh, right, of course, Chagall. This is a 1970 movie, of course. Like, so I understand that there's something that's trying to signify about, like, that this person either has very good taste or very mainstream taste.
Congratulations, Sam.
Yeah.
You are so intellectual.
I mean, I just had to say, like, I was observing my own thought process of being like, God damn. But the scene with the producer is all about taste and, like, the way a producer looks at things versus a director looks at things, right? And I think Alex kind of fucks up the meeting in a way, or he sabotages the meeting.
I disagree. I think that the producer is acting like, oh, you can do whatever you want with me. Like, I just want to work with you. But really, he's trying to give him schmaltzy stuff.
That's what Alex is acting like, but Alex doesn't have any ideas. And he keeps being like, okay, well, what do you want to do, man? Like, and Alex is like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, I've got this other crazy idea. It's not perfect. Does this mean anything to you?
I do think that the way Mazursky delivers those lines is so great. He's not just being manipulative. As you mentioned, he's like, what do you want? Like, I don't know what you want right now, because Alex doesn't know what he wants. He is indecisive, which is that quote in the beginning of the movie is a quote from Alice in Wonderland about Alice changing every day. And so that's one of the themes is Alex, the director, changing his mind a lot and transforming as a human being through his success and through the influence that the Hollywood scene has on him.
Yeah, the Wonderland that he's in is Hollywood.
Yes.
So, this is our second time watching this movie.
Yeah.
How do you think that it held up? How did you remember it? How did you appraise it this time after watching it so soon after 8.5?
The first time I watched this movie, I remember thinking, this is actually really delightful and I enjoy this movie a lot. As time went on, I remember thinking that about it, but I wasn't necessarily excited about watching it again. I wasn't dreading it, but I wasn't like, oh man, I love that movie. I can't wait to watch it again. And then as we were watching it again, I was reminded of how much I like this movie. Like, it's really delightful. It's really charming. It's so humanistic and very delicate in the way that it portrays people and their relationships to one another. And it's such an undiscovered gem in the world of cinema. So I really enjoyed rewatching it. And I'm so excited that we're covering it in this podcast episode.
You happy that we're doing this?
Yeah. And then watching it immediately after 8.5, maybe I was a little worried that I would think, oh, it's doing 8.5 so much that it's not original and this is taking away from it. But no, I feel like, yes, obviously it's very influenced by 8.5 in a lot of ways that we'll talk about, but it still is its own movie. It is still doing its own thing. It is not at all just trying to recapture the spirit of 8.5. It is a very different feeling to this movie compared to 8.5. I did not think it took away at all watching 8.5 immediately before this. I thought it added to it. How about you? What did you think?
Well, yeah, just to say that it's a much warmer film than 8.5.
Yes.
Like, just the vibe, as you're saying, like, the similarity, the difference, the vibe. Yeah. Gem is the perfect word for this movie. I am so excited just to talk about this absolute gem of a movie. I guess it's the kind of thing that would turn people off. Again, an unrelatable character, sort of more unrelatable character. I mean, he's a real insufferable person.
I actually wrote down that I thought he was way more relatable than Guido is in 8.5, just because of the way he relates to people. But the thing that maybe prevents me from loving this movie, like, I really like this movie. I love it in a way. The thing that holds me back from it jumping to a new level of appreciation for me is the fact that it's about a movie director in LA.
Yeah.
Like, that is annoying.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's Mazursky's thing. He typically makes movies about people in LA and New York. He's very similar to Woody Allen, who we will, have a reason to contrast with later on in this episode.
Woody Allen was actually even in a movie that Paul Mazursky directed called Scenes from a Mall, referencing Scenes from a Marriage, the Bergman film.
Yes. Going back to how 8.5-y this movie is, I kind of feel like this is in some ways the least 8.5-y movie of the ones that we're going to talk about.
I don't remember all that jazz very well, and I've never seen the Woody Allen one that we're going to cover, so yeah, I can't really speak to that.
Well, so just to not to spoil it, but can I just kind of like tell you what those movies are?
Sure.
Well, so like All That Jazz is pretty specifically autobiographical. Like, there's characters representing literal people that you can obviously tell are figures in Fosse's life and world, figures that are well known to the public. He's working on a musical that's clearly an analog for, Pippin, and then he's working on a movie that's clearly an analog for Lenny, and he has a heart attack at a time when he's got a heart attack, or what, it's like...
And those Pippin and Lenny is a musical and a movie that Bob Fosse made in real life. Just in case you are not familiar with Bob Fosse's work.
Yes, you're literally seeing him depict moments from his life, and everybody kind of knows what's happening. Stardust Memories is incredibly stylistically indebted to Fellini and 8.5, but it's about a director who's in a slightly different situation. This movie is really a similar kind of situation, but it has many more references that it is nodding to than just Fellini, even though Fellini is in it, and even though there is an 8.5 sequence. But that's the thing, is there's actually an 8.5 part of this movie, and it is stylistically different from the rest of the movie, even though there's all sorts of 8.5 touches woven through different fantasy sequences that he has, and there's some similarities, but there's a moment where he's fantasizing, like, what if I made 8.5? And it's this very, what you might call pretentious, like, parodic vision of Fellini, and his mom's on a horse, and it's a circus, and it's like, that's what it would be like if I really did 8.5.
Right.
This movie, the movie that the director in Alice in Wonderland is ruminating about making, is Alice in Wonderland.
Yes. Right before that 8.5 sequence you just mentioned, Alex has this exchange with his daughter, who is played by Paul Mazursky's actual daughter.
Just a perfect 1970s daughter.
Yeah.
With the freckles and the braces and the affect is just... He knew what he had.
Both of the daughters in this movie are Paul Mazursky's daughters, and they're so good.
Yeah, they're just like an illustration from like a children's book or something. I don't know.
Alex is talking to his family about what movie he should make next, and the daughter says, "Why don't you do a movie about us?" Alex says, "That's 8.5." And the daughter says, "What's 8.5?" Alex says, 8.5? 8.5 is a movie by Fellini, about himself, about a movie director with a lot of flashbacks about his mother and father and about his childhood. And the daughter says, "Doesn't sound like such a great movie." And Alex said, "No, it's the way he did it."
And you couldn't even rent 8.5 and show your daughter. Like, you just had to be like, no, maybe someday you'll see it. Like, sorry, go on.
And that's just so interesting because he is doing an 8.5 thing in Alice in Wonderland, but the way he's doing it is different.
He doesn't have a lot of the same concerns as Fellini.
No, a lot of the same themes come up. So themes like parent-child relationships, romantic relationships, religion, and being a director.
Marriage.
Yeah, that's romantic relationships. Yeah.
But marriage specifically.
Yes, marriage specifically.
Mazursky, unlike, Guido or Fellini, I mean, Mazursky was married to his wife for 60 years. His wife, who is the Ellen Burstyn analog, who was a social worker and librarian and just
so
total normal person. And this movie, it depicts a pretty cute marriage, even though he's a dick to her.
Yeah,
and,
they have marriage problems. Like they depict those problems in a very, very real way. So it definitely doesn't present their marriage as perfect. But unlike Guido, who's got a mistress and who is thinking about running away with this other actress, like Alex notices other women, looks at other attractive women, but in a very normal human being way. You see him do this and you don't think, oh, what a scumbag. You think like, that's a real person. And he does not cheat on his wife, at least from what we see in the movie. And that's very different than Guido. The portrayal of women is so different. In this movie, I like the female characters. The worst part for sure is this part where Alex is hanging out with his friend, and the friend says that he's hooking up with a chick who says she's 19, but she's probably 16, and he says that she isn't a good lay because she says it hurts.
Yeah, I mean...
That part was terrible.
But this is a joke? Is it funny?
I don't know.
Like, I'm like, is the joke like, wow, his friend's a predator? And like, because this is what's happening a little bit with Alex and what he's depicting, right? So Mazursky is one of the ultimate depictors of the late 60s counterculture. He was so tuned into this moment, but from the perspective of kind of a normie who's like putting on the costume and trying to be a hippie, right?
Okay, Mazursky has a very, very high opinion of himself. I was actually getting kind of annoyed watching YouTube videos that were interviews with him, and it was one of those things where I'm like, don't ever meet your idols,
right?
Because it'll kind of, like, I loved what Paul Mazursky did in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice and in Alice in Wonderland, and after watching interviews with him, I'm like, I kind of wish I hadn't seen those interviews.
But this movie is so hard on Alex, though. Alex is such an insufferable jerk in a way that's so brilliant because it's like he's really clear-eyed at looking at his own faults, but it's not in a way that makes him totally insufferable.
I'm saying Paul Mazursky is annoying.
I know, but I'm saying like in the movie. Like,
you think Mazursky's criticizing himself?
Yeah, I do, and that's the whole. He's very introspective about his marriage and stuff, and that led to a lot of his thinking. But
anyways, what I was going to say is Mazursky said at one point in an interview that he invented the 60s, and he was half kidding. But I think he also kind of believed it.
I mean, he really did this thing. What we kind of didn't get into as much as we could have in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice is like the company of it all.
What do you mean by that?
Stephen Sondheim's company.
The musical.
The musical company, which is all about a 35-year-old man who's got all these married friends, and it's just a musical that's kind of a rumination on societal pressures to get married. They've recently done a fascinating gender-swapped version of it.
Of Company.
With a 35-year-old woman and the pressures, that she sort of feels from society. Obviously, it's an evergreen concept. This is the beginning of people examining their lives. Relationships, in quotes, is like a buzzword. People in the 40s and 50s aren't like, we need to sit down and have a talk about our relationship. This kind of therapy speak that is the real hippie revolution kind of thing as it seeped into the mainstream culture and the way that people relate to each other now being profoundly different after that stuff. Mazursky is an anthropologist of this. He is like an Ashby in that he's riding the wave of the counterculture, but he's also got that perspective of like, he's looking at it with a wry chuckle, and like he can see all of the foibles that are present in the thing. And like I think that moment, like with the friend who's clearly his actor friend Andre, with the 16-year-old girl who's a 2 or whatever, there is something in the death of the 60s in that moment that there's that this guy's going too far in a way. Andre, don't you think? Like,
yeah.
And I think that there is a real dark joke, but I think it's this, Alex just wants to hear all of the fucked up things that this guy's saying because he's living vicariously through him.
Yeah. But that scene, I love that scene after that awful part because then they go to a cafe and they try to pick up a chick. They try to chat up a chick, I should say. So before they try to chat her up, they're like rating women on a 1 to 10 scale.
Yeah.
And it's misogynistic.
Yes.
And then they just turn to this hot chick and they're like, hey, you know what we're doing right now? We're rating women on a 1 to 10. What do you think about that? And she's like, oh, I just slept with a 10.
Yeah.
And she basically is like, I just had sex.
Right.
And then the guy comes over and she's like, here's the guy right now. They introduce them and they sit down, and then suddenly there's all this hippie music. People are playing instruments around them and they are all just jamming out to hippie music together, and it's so 60s and so funny. It's such a cool, different way to show gender dynamics because instead of them just sexualizing the women, they engage with her in conversation and she's like, oh, I'm just as down as you guys are. I have sex too. And then, their attempts to chat her up and see where that goes totally fail because her guy comes over, but it's all fine. It's all just like human connection.
That's the 60s, baby. And right, in that moment when it all of a sudden turns into this person on an acoustic guitar, it's got that closing in shot on Alex where he's like digging it, but then it's a little bit like he's like, this is also kind of fucking weird. There's something darkness creeping in. Because this movie is like, right, it's looking at the death of the 60s, but it's not really saying that it's going to be all that bad. It's just saying we're in a really crazy time right now. This is Wonderland. For all of this movie's 8.5-iness, and again, I'm sorry to spoil my current perception of the future 8.5-iness of the other movies, but I do think this movie is a little bit less 8.5-y than the other things, because it's also got quite a lot of room to show its influence in the French New Wave.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We mentioned the name Jean Moreau. So there's a cameo in this movie by the famous French actress Jean Moreau, who starred in a number of movies, including La Notte, which is an Italian film by Antonioni, who we had mentioned earlier when we were talking about the so-called Italian New Wave. But she's also in Jules at Gym, which is the Truffaut film.
Which Mazursky did a kind of a remake of. Right? Called Willie and Wexy or something like that?
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, Mazursky's obviously very interested in the French New Wave. His first short film he made was called Last Year in Malibu, which is obviously referencing Last Year in Marienbad.
Right, and he does the Scenes from a Mall thing later. He likes to do the cutesy version of a classic title.
Yeah, exactly. And then the opening scene.
How does this movie
You caught
start?
this too?
Oh, of course I caught it. Are you kidding me?
I'm so proud of us.
I know, but that was like from the first second, I'm just like, oh, this is even more than I thought. I forgot about
totally.
Right? But okay, so what is it?
Let's tell the listeners.
Right, yeah.
Okay, the movie opens with Alex sitting in a bathtub, naked, with his naked daughter. Which I will just say that I listened to this interview with Mazursky where he said he originally was going to do this movie with a different production company, and they were bothered by some things in it, including Alex sitting naked in a bathtub with his naked daughter. And Mazursky's like, I do this with my kids. I don't know what you're talking about. So they ended up going with a different production company.
I mean, this movie has a real Frenchiness in that way of like, we need to expose our children to sexuality.
Yeah.
And like, we need to make sure that our kids are comfortable with sexuality. And like, he's, his daughter, the conversation with his daughter when he's like, you realize that loving people is okay, right? Like it's like you need to not feel free to love and stuff. I'm like, this is so 60s, and I love that he put this in this movie.
Yeah,
because it's this amazing period piece for a lot of that stuff.
It really is. Yeah, like in that conversation you're talking about, which happens later in the film, he asks the daughter, like, what does it feel like when you see the boy that you have a crush on at school? Like, how does it make your eyes feel? How does it make your body feel? Does it feel good? And he's just really probing sexuality with his daughter in a way that's not creepy at all. It's just very open and
he is terrified
touching.
of the repression of the mainstream culture. Like, he has had this awakening, which you can see in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice.
Yeah.
He's had this awakening of how programmed everybody is and how much you got to get out of that. And that's what he's showing a way to, he's like, you can be this frank with your kids.
Yeah, Alex and his wife were discussing who should take care of the kids if they both die in an accident. And the last thing Alex wants is the kids to go to the wife's sister because he's like, she's such a square.
She's
like,
such a square.
Her kids just watch TV all the time, you know?
Yeah, but the joke is that he's like, they don't even have a single book in the house. And she goes, well, we just watch TV all the time with the kids. And he's like, yeah, but we have books. It's funny.
It is funny.
It's a good line. Yeah.
Okay, but the opening. He's in a bathtub with his daughter.
Yes.
Quoting Shakespeare. And it is very much, in my opinion, a direct reference. If we both picked up on this,
it's a
then it's clearly a direct reference to Pierrot Le Fou, which opens with Pierrot Le Fou, or Pierrot, reading, what is it, like the Spanish, it's like a Spanish...
Velasquez. He's reading a thing about Velasquez.
Velasquez, yeah. He's reading about Velasquez in the bathtub to his daughter, who's sitting there. I love that reference. The great thing about Alex in Wonderland is he's quoting Shakespeare to his daughter, and it's this young daughter, and you're like, she's not picking up on any of this. Mm-hmm. And then he starts asking her questions.
Yeah.
He asks her, what 3 foods would you bring on a deserted island? And she answers, and he genuinely seems to care about her answer. And then she's like, can we play story? And they play this game together where they create a story together. And he just seems so genuinely interested in the thoughts that his daughter has.
Because her story is better than his. No, it is. Like, she actually starts like making a good story, and then mom's like, bath time's over, and he's like, no, wait. And it's actually getting somewhere. Like,
that's funny. Yeah. But I think that this movie is one of the greatest depictions of a parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
I really love it, and it reminded me of how in Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, I remember thinking how great Bob seemed as a father interacting with the children. So I think Mazursky's actually just really good at presenting family dynamics and interacting with your kids as if they're real people.
He wants to model it. He wants to show this in movies and change the culture, I think, a little bit.
That you can have very healthy family dynamics. Right. Alex is driven so much by desire for his family to understand him. But so anyways, that bathtub scene, it's I love that it referenced Pierrot Le Fou, but then it took it one step further by making the character way more likable, because in Pierrot Le Fou, it's like he doesn't even give a shit if his daughter is like listening or not. He's just spouting random nonsense at her. But in Alice in Wonderland, he is really trying to impart wisdom to her and having a dialogue with her as a human being.
Absolutely. The French New Wave influence, specifically Godard influence, is felt through the aggressively pointed use of jump cuts, or you could say sloppy filmmaking. It reads to me, because I have this set of references that he's seeming to think you need in order to enjoy the film. He does these really very off-putting moments where he'll change the angle, and sometimes it seems like the jump cut is meant to be a humorous thing, because Alex does a lot of like rambling on and on about the same point. Did I find this movie relatable? Yes, I did. But like, and so sometimes you can't tell if the jump cut is jumping to him making the same point again later in the conversation. Did you pick up on this? Did you notice these jump cuts?
No, I didn't.
They're very sloppy and very weird. But like, to me, I could only read it as a self-conscious homage. But I could also see people thinking that the filmmaking is weird because it's maybe not quite he doesn't quite do it often enough.
Like, he's not doing it hard enough.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I could see that he did try to do that and didn't quite hit it hard enough, because there is a scene in one of the fantasy sequences where Jean Moreau comes back and she starts singing in the middle of some other song playing, and it's very much like a Godard, Pierrot Le Fou, where she just breaks out into like singing about the line in her hand and the line in her thigh. It was just like that, or like Shoot the Piano Player or whatever. It's very French New Wave.
Yes.
It's European art house influence. You got 8.5. He runs into Fellini and says like, I think you're the greatest director in the world.
Yes.
I love your movies. I love 8.5. I love La Strada.
And Fellini in this movie is basically like, what? What are you talking about? This is not a conversation I can have. I'm working on the clowns right now. Please. Please leave. I don't want to talk to you. Please, go away. That's his whole thing.
Pauline Kael said, after Mazursky and Tucker is the co-writer, he also co-wrote Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice.
Yes. And the pilot episode of The Monkees.
Yes.
Which is kind of we should talk about at some point in some episode, because that is like maybe the thing that starts the counterculture. Because that's like all the Corman and like the Rafelson, Easy Rider stuff, all that shit. That's where all of that hippie, because that's the commodification of hippies, kind of the first part. Anyways, Monkees, we'll talk about later. Yeah.
So Pauline Kael said, after Mazursky and Tucker went through God knows what machinations to get Fellini himself to appear in this film, they failed to provide him with good material. So she personally thinks that Fellini's presence didn't add anything to the film.
I mean, fair.
That is fair.
Like, it's, yeah.
Like, Fellini's basically like, I'm too busy to interact with you. They could have done so much more with that. Like, they could have done like an American Graffiti thing, you know, where he finally meets like the DJ and it's just a kind of magical moment.
But I guess all of this, a lot of what's happening in this movie is these false starts. And he's like, that's not the idea for the movie. Like, that's not where I should go with that. I can't pull that off or whatever.
Yeah, and you could imagine Mazursky not wanting to create something so
precious.
Cute. Yeah, precious. That's the word I'm looking for. About meeting Fellini and it being an amazing moment.
What's so funny, too, about these American directors who are influenced by the European New Wave and these Italian movies is, so 8.5 is 7 years old, 6 when he starts making the movie. These are fairly contemporary references. Like, Pierrot Le Fou is 1965, right? So 5 years later, he's like, I'm doing my homage to classic Pierrot Le Fou.
Alex is walking down a hallway, sees a picture of Peter Fonda, and is like, Peter Fonda, ooh, Easy Rider. And he directly references the movie Easy Rider, which came out in 1969.
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland comes out in 1970. It must have literally just come out.
Right. So he knows that he's in this moment. I mean, that's Mazursky's whole thing, is he met his moment so well. Just like knew that he had something with the seemingly vapid countercultural figures that surrounded him, and he was absolutely right. And these movies exist as just wonderful, you don't want to say time capsule, although of course there is some stuff about this movie that is a little dated.
I know what you're talking about, obviously.
But it's kind of not, because like you have to appreciate how raw he's being about the way people were thinking about things like race and what director can tell what story.
Yes.
Like, he's being very naked, I think, and incisive and kind of modern. Like, I think he's sort of working through this whole question of, like, whose story is what to tell in the movie.
Yes. So if you haven't seen this movie, what Sam is talking about is Alex has a bunch of different ideas about what he wants to make his next movie about. One of the ideas is a Malcolm X movie and a Lenny Bruce movie.
Which we will see depicted in All That Jazz.
Yes.
Being made by Fosse.
Revisit that later in this episode. But one of the movies he keeps bringing back up that he wants to do is a movie about Black people revolting and taking over Beverly Hills in a violent manner. But he's like presenting it as like he loves the story. He wants to tell the story. He wants to tackle social issues, and he wants to show the Black perspective.
He's desperate to make an important film.
Yes.
He doesn't know what he wants to make, but anytime an idea sounds like we can make a real political statement, that's when he starts getting a little bit excited. Of course, it doesn't really go anywhere usually, but so he's fascinated by race.
Yes.
And he's justifying to himself, like, why can't a white guy tell Malcolm X's story? And
yeah.
Right. So,
and he has this fantasy scene where he's imagining all of these Black women dancing naked in the beach. And then all these Black men start dancing naked coming out of the water. And then they all come together on the beach. And Alex is in the middle of them, dancing with them. You get the sense that he wants to be accepted by them.
Oh, yeah.
But is maybe in over his head as well. Like that scene is very trippy, and it's a little it's not clear exactly what is trying to be conveyed there, and I think that's one of the points. But I do think you're right that it's the movie's criticizing Alex to some extent for wanting to tell these stories. You see him ask a Black man that he happens to be next to, like, hey, what do you think about Malcolm X? And you see him like trying to get approval. He's like telling his friends about his idea, and he's like trying to get approval from his like one Black friend who's in the group.
But his one racist friend, a young Michael Lerner,
I knew that guy was familiar. I'm like, this guy's a famous guy, right?
Yeah, he's the dad in Clueless and stuff. Or no, not the dad in Clueless. I'm sorry. Was he the dad in Clueless on TV? But no, he's in the Coen Brothers movies and stuff. Like he's in Barton Fink. He's the studio head. A kind of a similar movie. You'd know Michael Lerner.
Yeah.
Look up Michael Lerner if you know older Michael Lerner. But this is a young racist Michael Lerner.
Yeah, it's this weird combination of like his friends are like, man, you're a bigot and everything.
Right.
But Mazursky is also highlighting the fact that his friend is Jewish, and the friends like it just
they keep asking their black friend for his opinion and then never listening to him.
Yeah, it's just a weird combination of a bunch of things. Mazursky's like criticizing, and Mazursky himself is Jewish. I don't know. It's a little weird exactly what he's trying to say there, but I really liked actually showing conversation between friends where one of them is saying things that are not okay, and the rest being like, "Hey, man, that's not cool," and it just felt very real.
Yeah, and they get to a pretty good point, which is like, yeah, Alex can criticize this guy and call him a bigot, but he's not an expert on this. Like, Alex's heart is in the right place, but it's a pretty wrong-headed idea, I think, in a lot of ways. Or it's certainly an idea that is not a story that's probably not his to tell. Really, yes. I would say. And it's kind of a similar movie that he describes to The Spook Who Sat by the Door, which is a seminal movie that I would love to cover on this
Yeah, we'll
podcast.
Definitely cover that movie,
of course.
For sure. In case we haven't made it clear, Alex is white.
Alex is Donald Sutherland. If this movie were bigger, it would certainly be a career-defining performance.
Personally, I think it's Sutherland's greatest performance.
I hardly agree.
So good. He does this laugh throughout the movie that's like, man, I can't believe this is happening type of laugh. That it just always blows me away. Pauline Kael said, Sutherland isn't bad. He's loose and he has a soft-spoken way with dialogue, but we get no sense of a person there or of what kind of drive or talent is hidden in his flowing beard and picture hats. I totally disagree. I think Alex comes across as a real person who wants to be understood and who cares about social issues, even if he's misguided in the way that he wants to present them.
He's an incredibly complex character.
Yeah.
And he's spectacular in the movie.
He's so good.
All of the acting in the movie is really, really good.
Yeah,
all
Ellen
the performances are great. Burstyn is fan-fucking-tastic. Can we have a second on Burstyn?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like an all-time great Ellen Burstyn performance, in my opinion. This is a super early performance in her. I mean, she's, I guess, Last Picture Show is coming out this same year, as is MASH. This is a year for Sutherland and Burstyn. They both have two big movies by these auteurs coming out. And Burstyn, she's playing such a regular lady. It's like a plain Jane, but emotionally. She's not overplaying the sadness or the put-uponness or anything. Burstyn, I'm used to Burstyn having so much of a force of personality in her roles, giving you this really deep emotional response. And in here, it's like the kind of role that Shelley Duvall would do.
I related so much to the wife character because of the way that Ellen Burstyn performed the character. So, like, for example, when Alex is trying to tell her about this idea he has for a movie, we've seen him this whole movie do nothing but tell his family about ideas he has for the movie. So he does this all the time. And so he's telling her about an idea. And she's like, oh, sounds interesting. What do you want for breakfast? And he gets upset with her because he's like, no, I'm trying to tell you about this important idea that I have. And she's like, I'm interested. I want to know. I just also want to know what do you want for breakfast because I'm hungry. And I'm like, that's so relatable to me because I feel like it's so hard to give the exact perfect response sometimes to creatives when they're trying to tell you about like what they want to do, which obviously Sam as a creative, like, I feel like I let you down a lot of times when you're trying to talk to me about artistic stuff.
No, you don't let me down. This movie is a very relatable dynamic, I think. As me being a kind of motor mouth jerk off or whatever. But it's like, I'll do the thing where like he's just like talking about it at one point. He's like, I talk a lot of movie stuff, don't I? And she's like, yep. And it's like, I feel like that's me. It's like, I do it so much. I'm like, look, I apologize for this. I'm not going to stop, but I am aware of how insufferable I'm being right now.
I also really related to when Alex takes acid for the first time, which is it's really capturing the fact that acid is a new thing.
The coming back to the house after it. The darkened house.
Yeah, he comes back to the house.
Such a vibe.
And he keeps saying, like, I wish you were there. I want you to experience this with me. I want you to take acid with me. And she's like, I don't want to do it. And that felt so relatable because I don't like doing drugs. But I can just like so much relate to like my partners having extreme life-changing, perceptive-changing experiences and telling me about it. And I'm like just living a normal life where I don't have these like big experiences. And like I'm doing my best to interact and relate to that, but also like I'm just like plain Jane over here, just going to work and coming home, and then not much changes in my life. I was just relating the fact that like Ellen Burstyn performs it so well,
Yeah, no, exactly.
that it's just extremely relatable. And the way she cries, and then the daughter comes over, pushes the dad away, pushes Alex away, and he's like no longer able to like be part of that family unit, but he wants to be so bad. It was just a really great scene.
All of the domestic scenes. I mean, this is a real good house movie. I mean, this is a movie all about him thinking about purchasing a new house. And,
right.
This house that they go to see is totally magical. And
they act like it's like garish. And even
Right.
Pauline Kael says something about it being garish and over the top. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? That's a fucking gorgeous house.
But because he's currently in this phase of like, he knows he's about to become this massive figure. But he's like, I want to give the kids opportunities, but I want them to live a real life. Like, I don't want them to become spoiled brats or whatever and stuff. And so, like, they're in this house that's a little too small for their family, and like the fact that they're super rich and shit.
Yeah.
And their little kitchen nook and the bedrooms, and there's the scene where he and Burstyn are having sex, and you feel that bedspread and that sunlight coming through the window shade.
Yeah.
And it's just a very sensual movie, beautifully shot by Laszlo Kovacs. You know, him looking at the light through the trees in the end in the house. It's both very Godard and also very Jonathan Livingston Seagull 70s hippy-dippy soft lighting thing, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm thinking Hal Ashby. Now, every time you... Like, I can't believe I didn't think of that, because he looks exactly like Hal Ashby.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got to be at least visually modeled on him.
Yeah, he's got to be. I love what you had said about like the feeling of the house in this movie.
Yes.
There's a scene where he's talking to his daughter about very philosophical things, and they're having this intense conversation. And in the background, you just see the mom like walking back and forth in the hallway, doing laundry or chores or something. And it's just such a really nice touch to show like, you know, that it's really multiple people living here. You're never really alone. You're all together, and that can be good or it can be annoying if you're trying to like connect with your daughter. But I don't know. It was just like really good sense of place with the house. So, well, to bring it back to 8.5, like there's a scene where he's talking to his daughter about very philosophical things. The philosophical musings remind me of 8.5 a lot, but it doesn't go nearly as hard as 8.5 does, obviously.
No, and again, like, yeah, I think that this movie, it's when it has the 8.5 moment, it's very like, I'm not making a pretentious movie like that.
Right, it's like, this is what it would look like to be pretentious.
It's like, come on, like, this is, yes, he's a director, and yes, it's like 8.5, but this is a different thing that I'm doing, right? I'm doing something more emotional, I'm doing something more about Hollywood, and really, the Catholicism that is overarching Fellini's whole worldview is replaced by a kind of 60s mysticism.
Yes.
And, like, that's the religion that he's in, and that's the world that he's walking around in.
Yeah, it actually plays a pretty prominent role. Like, his friend is kind of balancing back and forth between mysticism and the Bible, then Judaism. And you see Hare Krishna. And at the end, Alex talks to the tree where the light's shining through as if he's talking to God. Mm-hmm. But you get the sense it's spiritualism.
Yeah.
And it's religion is for sure has a big place in this movie.
Yeah. And it's these new orthodoxies. Alex seems to be living amongst his family as if this has been his philosophy the whole time. I don't know how long ago he could have had his awakenings when he went to the Echelon Institute, but it couldn't have been that... Mazursky.
Yeah.
But it couldn't have been that long ago.
Right.
But, like, he's acting as if this is our way of life, is we are hippies.
Well, I bet that he did connect with his family in a way that was, like, you know, along with the changing times.
Yeah. But this movie is also not, like, it's not really about him being blocked either, as opposed to 8.5.
Right. So Guido in 8.5 is a genius who has made many successful films and is just having a creative block. And Alex,
he's making a movie.
And
like he has a movie that's going.
He's already hired people. Like people are on his payroll, and the deadline is pressing.
Yes.
And Alex is not really presented as a genius. Even though I've heard Mazursky in interviews has referred to himself as like having creative genius. Yeah. So like Mazursky clearly feels like he's a genius.
I think Alex is, I really feel like the producer is meant to be a person who, like, him liking Alex is something that you're supposed to think is pretty cool about this guy. Alex doesn't like it, but this producer, like, Alex is kind of a cool director.
I think he's a cool director. I think he's like a cool up and coming.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, director.
Yeah.
So yeah, Guido versus Alex, they're definitely very different. As we mentioned, Alex has genuine connections with those around him.
Yeah.
And he wants his family to understand him. And I don't get that feeling at all from Guido. Guido does not actually seem to connect at all with anybody.
Right.
He wants to connect with his wife, but is not quite connecting with her and doesn't actually put that much effort into connecting with her.
Do you feel like Alex is struggling with being a genius, or struggling with the weight of expectations? He feels like he's taking it in stride.
No, I don't think he's struggling with that. I think he's I needed an idea for my next movie, but he's not even struggling with that so much. He's just in the natural process that you could be in.
Yeah, he's like, I want to choose the right one. And everyone's like, it's important to choose the right one. And he's like, good.
Eight and a Half has the past, the present, and the fantasy. I don't know if we specified that when we were talking about it originally. But Alex in Wonderland just has the present and the fantasy. It doesn't have the past.
Right.
You see his mother in it, but there's no flashbacks. The mother relationship is presented very real. There's that scene in the car where she wants to live with them, but he's like, it's really hard on the family. And then she's like, you don't love me. Nobody loves me. I'm all alone. And it's really sad when she's crying about that.
Yeah, it's just, it's a real mother situation. Everybody in Eight and a Half is an archetype.
Yes, exactly.
And everybody in Alex in Wonderland is just a real person that Paul Mazursky literally knows.
Yeah, Mazursky said his mother did have bipolar disorder, so I think he was capturing that. I love that he puts people he knows in movies. He puts his daughters in the movie. He presumably puts his actual friend in real life in the movie, Andre. He puts Ellen Burstyn's husband in the movie in a small role. He makes it a family affair.
Absolutely does. And so speaking of putting people in this movie, so we got the Eight and a Half influence, we got the French New Wave influence, and there's another antecedent / New Hollywood trend that is present in this movie that I realized the first time we saw it is part of this thing that I feel like isn't quite talked about as often as some of these other influences. New Hollywood is this point in history when students of the different teachers who were taught by Konstantin Stanislavski, the method, Stella Adler, Lee Strasberg, Meisner.
These are acting teachers.
When the students of those people became prominent enough in Hollywood that they started putting the acting teachers in their movies and giving them a sort of showcase role. Lee Strasberg in The Godfather 2 is the quintessential version of this. You've got Sanford Meisner in Mikey and Nicky. I think Stella Adler's in something or other. But this has Viola Spolin as the mother. When I first saw this movie, I was like, who is this lady? I've never seen this lady before. What's the deal with this? She has a gravitas, but she's also a very weird actor.
I actually thought she was pretty bad.
I don't think she's good in the movie.
I was like, is that his actual mom? Because I don't think she's very good in that opening scene.
Viola Spolin, who is the mother of a lot of modern improv things and theater games.
Well, I don't think it showcased her very well,
no,
to be honest.
It's not a great character, and she didn't really do a great job.
No.
But yeah, so she is, Mazursky, by the way, he attempted to get in to the actor's studio and was rejected, but he did get some Strasberg lessons. And Mazursky was an actor in the 50s. He was in Stanley Kubrick's first film, Fear and Desire.
Yeah, he was in a couple of Twilight Zone episodes.
Blackboard Jungle and things, right? But so he's in that strain of that 50s method actor revolution, right? This is one of his attempts at putting on the old teacher for one last ride, and it's Viola Spolin as the mother, and I think she acquits herself okay. This is a movie about acting and about Hollywood and about creative people and about the New Hollywood Revolution.
Yeah. In terms of the New Hollywood Revolution, it just captures that so well. Pauline Kael said, the film comes out of a true wonderland, the chaotic New Hollywood, where the anti-establishment filmmakers have become the establishment, and the establishment executives pose as anti-establishment. So that scene with with Mazursky acting as the producer.
Pretending to get Chagall.
Right. And then having sex with his secretary. That was just a funny bit.
A little joke, but it's he's a producer. I guess it's meant to be sleazy because she's the secretary, but she seems certainly very into it.
Yeah, Kael,
although she was also hot to trot for Alex, too.
That's
she's
true.
just kind of a randy secretary, I guess.
She was down for any of it.
Kind of the joke.
Kael was like, Tucker and Mazursky are such good comedy writers because they were kind of a comedy duo. She considered them really great, comedy review and comedy satire writers.
Yeah.
And she thought that it's a shame that they didn't put more humor in this movie. I thought this movie had lots of funny moments.
Yeah.
but she wanted more from them because she thought they were really talented as comedy writers. And so she thought that was kind of a wasted skill.
The funny moments in these are all character moments where like Sutherland, like he has a great moment where they're in the supermarket and it's just this one of these amazing marriage fights. He's like being a dick and then he like walks away for a bit and comes back to her and he's like smiling at her, but it's a real like, I'm sorry. And she's like, it's fine. And he's like, ugh. He like rolls his eyes.
Right.
And it's like this to himself, like she didn't even notice. And it's like, that's so real.
It is very real.
And yeah.
Yeah, Pauline Kael has this other quote. Alice in Wonderland captures for the first time on screen the palmy hip look of New Hollywood. The 60s swingers have now adopted the prophetic saintly style, which is super relaxed. It's fun that she even says the phrase New Hollywood in her reviews for this movie.
I'm sure it became like an annoying cliche immediately for these filmmakers.
Probably. But this was 1970. So this
not
was
Mazursky, I doubt. Yeah,
this was the very beginning of everything.
Right.
And Mazursky, I don't think he was that critical of his own work. This movie has great music, I thought. I thought it was very 60s-esque, just like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice with cool music. The composer is Tom O'Horgan, who's a famous Broadway theater director. He directed Hair and Jesus Christ Superstar. He's described as the Busby Berkeley of the acid set.
Oh, yeah. Two movies that I can't wait to fucking do on the show.
Yeah, we're definitely going to cover those movies. So I just thought it was fun that he was involved with this movie. But this movie, it was a commercial flop.
Yeah.
And it received mixed critical reviews. But Mazursky, as I said, isn't very critical of his own stuff. And he was like, I liked this movie. And he was very disappointed that it didn't do well. He felt like it would have done better if he lived in Europe. So after the movie came out and didn't do well, he moved to Rome. And he said that he hung out with Fellini a bunch and became really close to Fellini. I'm a little skeptical about how close they actually became, but whatever. Mazursky said people in the U.S. didn't like that he presented himself as an artist. So this movie is a very cool example of an 8.5 style film. It's doing the 8.5 thing very directly, very explicitly, but it's also doing a bunch of other European art house stuff, as we mentioned. But it's very much doing its own thing, too. It has that humanist touch that Tucker and Mazursky both bring with their writing, but Mazursky brings with his directing as well. I think this is a really charming movie, and I wish more people would see it. It's
not a movie that people bring up very often as like, oh, like that's a kind of movie needs to be reclaimed. Like every once in a while you hear people bring it up as a gem, but I think this movie is under-discussed, as I guess all Mazursky is.
Yeah, fully agree. All right, next up, we're going to watch All That Jazz.
So park your car, I know a whoopee spot where the gin is cold and the piano's hot. It's just a noisy hall where there's a nightly brawl and all that jazz.
Honestly, like, I love Chicago, the musical, and I kind of wish we were watching that next.
That's not a new Hollywood movie.
I know, but I like it. But no, we will do All That Jazz. So are you guys going to go to sleep again? Is that what are we sticking with that bit of the audience going to sleep?
Just go to sleep. When you wake up, it'll be Roy Scheider in some tight pants doing jazz hands. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back.
Good morning.
Yes, is this our first morning record that we've ever done?
Yeah, I woke up weirdly early and we decided to just bang this out real quick before I go to work. So the sun is shining through the window.
We've got our Visine, our Dexedrine. We looked at ourselves in the mirror and we said, showtime with jazz hands.
We are ready to go.
We don't need to pay any attention to that painful feeling in our chests, but, we'll push on through this recording.
Yeah, just ignore that. Don't pay attention to that. Okay, Sam, can you just real quick explain to any listeners out there who are not familiar with who Bob Fosse is? Can you just give them a brief rundown of who this man is, and why he's important, and why they should care?
Bob Fosse is probably one of the most influential figures in the 20th century in the field of choreography, specifically jazz dance. I think you could look as not something that he really created, but represents the refinement of. He was a choreographer and a director, and part of this revolution in musical theater or a would-be revolution, if you will, of director choreographers attempting to become auteurs of stage musicals and sometimes break into filmmaking. And Fosse is really the most successful one of those, as far as being the auteur of his own work on stage and also then parlaying that into a filmmaking career. And Fosse is one of the key figures of New Hollywood. This has to do with, largely, he had 1 year in which he experienced a kind of absurd success that is unparalleled by any human, and nor should it ever be equal, because it's just such a weird thing to happen, which is that he won the Triple Crown of directing in 1 year. He won Best Director of an Emmy for a television special for Liza with a Z, Best Director of a Musical with Pippin, and Best Director of a Film, the Oscar, for directing the film version of Cabaret, beating out Francis Ford Coppola for The Godfather, amongst others. So that is sort of what gave him the cachet in Hollywood to be able to bring his vision of a slightly cooler idea of a musical movie into the mainstream.
What year was that when he won the Triple Crown, so to speak?
73.
And then the movie we're talking about today is All That Jazz, which came out in 1979.
And is an autobiographical look at Fosse's life. A considerably more autobiographical story than any of these other 8.5 movies, I think, that we're going to be talking about. And it details the period of time after his Triple Crown year. Like when he was overworked and doing a million things at once. He was editing the film Lenny, which is a film starring Dustin Hoffman that's about the life of Lenny Bruce, a project that Alex in Wonderland was ruminating about taking himself. He's editing the film Lenny, and he's also creating the musical Chicago. And Fosse suffered a heart attack and had to get open heart surgery.
And so All That Jazz is basically depicting that story of him trying to edit Lenny and while choreographing Chicago and having this heart attack. But mixed in with this autobiographical elements is a heavy fantasy element as well. I don't want to give anything away with the ending. I know we usually do spoilers. I don't want to spoil this one at the end. Just because I feel like with this episode, we're talking about 4 movies. I think it's likely that maybe plenty of our listeners decided to listen without watching all 4 of these. And if you do want to watch All That Jazz, I just think it's better not knowing what happens at the end.
Well, because this movie, a lot of it is spent showing dancing. It's perhaps the most experiential of these films.
Yeah, I love the dance numbers.
Yeah.
At first, while watching All That Jazz, I was feeling a little let down by the lack of full-on dance numbers. And then once they do the Take Off With Us number, I was like, oh, here we go. This is what I wanted. That number really delivers. Check it out on YouTube. If you're not in the mood to watch this movie, you don't think you will, just look up the Take Off With Us number from All That Jazz. It's amazing. You think it's over at one point, you're like, wow, that was great. And then it just keeps going and it keeps getting fucking better and cooler. And yeah, I love that number so much. But I also love the Everything Old Is New Again dance with Kate and Michelle. It's super cute.
Amazing, yeah. Yeah, that's a little cute moment where the woman he's dating and his kid do a little dance for him. And it's like this kind of stepmom-child relationship. It made me think it would be a lot easier probably to get along with the woman your dad's dating if you're all just dancing all the time. And you can just dance with each other and bond in that way. If every girl your dad ever dates, you can at least speak that language, So just to kind of describe Fosse's dance style and what he's attempting to do with choreography and film and how he's trying to blend the two. Fosse is kind of the master of subtlety. You should maybe look up a little something of what Fosse's style is if you don't have it in your head, but you probably do. What would you say are the classic Fosse staples?
So when I think of Fosse, I'm not as familiar with Bob Fosse as you are, but I love the musical movie Chicago, the one with Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones. You could definitely get a lot of the Fosse style from that. The hunched back, knees pointed inward, maybe like a hand flapping up over a butt or something like that, a face down by a knee. Wears a lot of hats because I read somewhere that because he's bald, he liked to wear hats and he didn't like his hands, so he put gloves on. I'm assuming he also just thought it looked cool. I'm sure that's not the only reason he incorporated those.
Well, that's Fosse's style. Is he's the ultimate self-critic. He's extremely competitive with himself and also the world, and every single thing that he claims as part of his style, he claims to be arising out of an imperfection of his own technique, which is a little bit crazy because he's also one of the most incredible dancers of all time. He himself is a song and dance man, but he's always saying I hunched my shoulder, so that's why I exaggerated it, and I had terrible turnout, so I turned my feet in. But what he's really allowing for is a much darker, internal, sensual, but also subtler form of stage picture. What Fosse represents is he's the combination of, a Fred Astaire kind of showmanship, his youth as a burlesque dancer. There's the Agnes de Mille
revolution in stage choreography, which is a lot. I can't really get into Agnes de Mille, but it's a lot more individualized dancer. Every dancer is sort of a specific character.
As opposed to like everybody doing the same move?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
As opposed to kind of the more uniform choreography, which this is what musical theater in general is moving away from, a kind of more block chorus idea to a more individualized conceptual thing, which we can get into in a second. But anyways, and so there's that. And then another acting teacher, Sanford Meisner, who is, I again, also can't get into specifics of Meisner technique, but it's very less is more. And Fosse said that Meisner had this banner on his wall that said, "Don't just say something, stand there."
It's weird that you describe Fosse's style as less is more, because when I watch Fosse, I'm like, that is so Fosse, and that is doing a lot. But I guess it's achieving a lot while doing less.
If you look at the Hey Big Spender number in Sweet Charity, it's a lot of, it's women in these like seductive poses, a hand over a head and one on the hip, right? They're completely motionless, except maybe the one hand on the side is rolling its fingers around, pinpointing on this one image. There's this part in the movie that it's really kind of a proof of concept, where he's working on a routine with his daughter.
We're talking about the movie All That Jazz.
We're talking about the movie All That Jazz. He's telling her to do like tiny little things. Who told you to stop rolling your head? Point your toe. And you can see how it completely changes the shape of her body. It's these little movements, but they're telling such a complete story. And this is why Fosse is really well suited to make a movie of his work, because there's little tiny things that he wants to capture with choreography that you can't do on stage, that you can do with very intricate and involved camera moves, but also editing, which he's really a master of, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy one of the things I think of with Bob Fosse's style is you're watching a musical number and then suddenly you get a shot from like behind stage or off to the side, and it's a weird shot of the people doing their thing, or it's a very like long shot from far away. He creates this very specific effect, and it's weird how much I consider that a Fosse style when he could not ever do that on stage. So it's just so cool that he was able to transition into not just being a musical choreographer and director on stage, but then also make it into the film business as well.
You have to understand that we're in New Hollywood, but we're also in a kind of revolutionary period in musical theater. Musicals are getting a lot more conceptual. Hal Prince and Sondheim and Kander and Ebb, and Fosse, too. Fosse is adding layers of meaning to shows like Pippin in Chicago. Pippin originally was just a very silly show that's just about like the son of Charlemagne and his adventures. And it was very goofy. Fosse adds to the book this much darker, cynical, he makes it into a Bildungsroman that is all about the meaninglessness of life. Here we can get into, Fosse, I think, has a very specific perspective on the world, and it's incredibly present in All That Jazz. How do you feel about this movie's philosophy and its themes and subject matter?
I feel like you have considered all of this way more than I have, because you've seen this movie so many more times. And I know you've told me a number of times while talking about Fosse, like, oh, he's got such a sophomore take on things like sex. But in terms of how he explores his themes, like, well, what are the main themes? The themes are his relationship with women, similar to 8.5. Being a creator, similar to 8.5, and death, which is a part of 8.5, but it is not nearly as big of a theme in 8.5 as it is in this movie. Like, death is the main theme of All That Jazz.
Yeah, similar to how 8.5 was originally just meant to be a thing about writer's block, and then Fellini had the breakthrough that was like, oh, what if I make this about me making this movie? Fosse wanted to make a film about death. He'd undergone this experience.
The heart attack while editing Lenny and choreographing Chicago.
Originally, he'd wanted to do an adaptation of the book Ending by Hilma Wolitzer, similar themes of death and marital problems. However, Fosse just thought this is too depressing. It would be cooler to look at if it was just my life. Because like my life is at least pretty interesting, and then I could actually show some stuff that we've never seen in a movie really before or since, which is like this look at New York theater scenes, what it's like to rehearse these dance numbers. We've seen movies about what it's like to be a director, a film director. I don't know of any other movie that's about being a choreographer, do you?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, a movie that this definitely reminded me of, especially in the beginning, was Chorus Line.
Well,
because of the opening of All That Jazz, showing the process of selecting the dancers, very much like Chorus Line. Then it dives into the actual choreographer, as opposed to just being a movie about the different Chorus Line auditioners. I don't remember Chorus Line very well. Did I explain that well?
A Chorus Line, if you don't know this, is a musical that was clearly in Fosse's head for a number of reasons, because The Chorus Line is kind of the musical of the 70s. It was a massive hit, a revolutionary in its conception, and it's obviously the kind of show that Fosse wishes that he could create. A show about real people, problems of sexuality and mortality and, society. It's all this intricate play of dance and movement and simplicity, and it completely trounced Fosse's Chicago at the 1976 Tony Awards. This is one of the most legendary Tonys of all time. Pacific Overtures was also there, getting trounced as well. So Chicago originally was not a big success until the revival 20 years later. At the time, it was considered nowhere near as artistically successful or as interesting as A Chorus Line. Chicago, again, I also think has this sort of sophomoric take of like, hey, did you ever notice that in America, we kind of treat murderers like celebrities, man? Fosse is this guy who clearly had his mind blown by a lot of concepts in the 60s, but he's just kind of a juvenile thinker and somebody who, I think he has a terrible sense of humor, first of all, can I say? Like,
Can you give an example of a joke?
I think like the doctor smoking scene joke. Like, that could be better.
Can you explain that scene to anybody who didn't watch the movie?
Much is made in the movie of this $1 million life insurance policy, which they've taken out on Roy Scheider. The character that plays is called Joe Gideon. He obsessively smokes a cigarette in almost every frame of the movie. He's got the cigarette sort of like, he's smoking it all the way down to the nub. So this scene where this doctor is examining him, and the doctor is smoking, and Joe Gideon is smoking, and all the producers and the writers are all sitting around sort of looking at each other, and they just overplay it so much. Like, he's coughing, the doctor's coughing. It's like, oh, you'll be fine. Don't worry. I don't know. Like, I can't tell if he thinks it needs to be hit so hard, and that was what will make it funny, or if he's making it absurd, but it doesn't quite make it absurd enough. It just makes it like they're all knowingly winking about this or something. Like it just but this movie is also about comedy. There's a lot of moments of him looking at comedy because he's making a movie about a stand-up comedian. Also, like it's got this origin story of him in this burlesque show with this terrible comic. There's a long scene where you're seeing the comic make terrible jokes, and then you see the fake Lenny movie where the guy's making terrible jokes. And it's like, is Fosse trying to show us, like, this is why I have a terrible sense of humor? This is the origin of me having this vaudevillian awful joke setup.
I have to say, all of the Lenny Bruce stuff that's throughout the movie, they show him editing the Lenny Bruce movie, Lenny.
It's called the stand-up in the movie.
It's called the stand-up. And they show certain scenes from it, and they keep replaying those scenes throughout all that jazz. I know it's supposed to comment on what you're currently watching, but I think all of that stuff falls a little flat for me.
Agreed.
It just feels repetitive and doesn't make a strong enough point. I kind of wish they cut the majority of the Lenny stuff, to be honest.
None of the stuff with the musical is really a one-to-one analog with a lot of Chicago stuff. He's being creative and making this completely fictional musical number about an airline, which I think is also, personally, I suspect that's a moment that happened really when he was making Pippin with the song With You. The composer's like, now Sinatra will never record it once they get all sexualized and stuff. And I think that's really something that probably happened with Stephen Schwartz when he saw Fosse's orgy choreography for the song With You, which is a very sweet ballad. And then it just kind of like has this moment where he finishes singing the ballad, and then it gets like, and then like an orgy starts. And I kind of think that's probably something that happened in that moment. So I wish that they could have just been a little bit more creative too with the Lenny thing. Like,
That's true.
Well, it's just literally exactly Lenny Bruce, and I know Lenny Bruce had a lot of ruminations about death, which is what we're using for thematic resonance. But I just, you could have thought of something a little more interesting than literally what you were doing.
I agree. He didn't need to be like stuck with the original source material, because it's a semi-autobiographical movie. There's a lot of fiction in this movie.
Yeah, and he's always, as all of these guys are, where, like, this isn't me. Like, Joe Gideon isn't me. And it's like, I mean, he is you. Like, this is pretty specifically Bob Fosse's life.
He literally cast his then girlfriend, Anne Reinkin, to basically play herself in the movie.
Hey, he made her audition about 15 times.
She, in my opinion, was the best one. Like, I didn't like the actress who played the Verdon character, Audrey. I didn't love her dancing or her acting or her singing. So I was like, why'd you cast her?
She was in Pippin.
Oh, okay, well, still.
Yeah,
Anne Reinkin, though, I thought she did a great job.
Well, yeah, I was forced to consider the famous, he made her audition a bunch of times to play herself. And I'm trying to put myself in the position of being Fosse. Like, is she doing what I want her to do? Because, like, yeah, I agree the Audrey stuff, the ex-wife, the Gwen Verdon character, it's a little weak. I don't love her scene where she's dancing with him. I think that's one of the worst dance parts. Her character is kind of doing a specific thing, she's biting down into the character, but I don't really understand what she's doing. And Anne Ryan King is just being herself.
Yeah.
And is also kind of a non-character. Like, it's just like, she's just his girlfriend who's nice, who's cool. Do I wish there was a better actress in that role doing something more specific, or do I like that it's just really Anne Ryan King?
I think it really does add something. Usually when you cast a real person as themselves, they're a bad actor, and that's not the case in this.
She just wishes Joe would be a little less generous with his cock.
Oh, that's a good example of a lame joke.
Yeah. And like, so what do you think of all that jazz? How's this fitting in the 8.5 pantheon for you? It's a pretty different movie from the other ones in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's so different. So far, I'm loving how unique each of these films are. This has so many 8.5 elements. It has the past, present, and fantasy elements.
Yeah.
Just like 8.5 does.
I feel like it has one scene with his mother that to me feels like an obligatory scene.
Because they're like, we have to have the mother because it's 8.5.
Yeah, I'm like, Fosse, I don't believe you have any issues with your mother at all. Like, he just like puts her like in an apron with a pan, explaining some exposition about how he worked at a burlesque house, and I'm like, I don't think this is any kind of deep-seated mother thing. You're just doing a Fellini thing, man.
Yeah, but, that's fair. But it is the movie is just so uniquely his own. It has such a Bob Fossiness infused into it, and it's also just Fosse is at a similar place in his career as Fellini was when Fellini made 8.5. So that aspect is more similar compared to Alex in Wonderland, where it was right after his first success. But Fosse is already a very established creator at this point. So that's similar to 8.5. But this movie is not about somebody who has creative block.
Right.
You see him a little bit not quite sure what to do with the choreography in the Take Off With Us number. But then he fixes it and he makes an amazing thing, and this is the only movie so far where you actually see the output of the creator within the film that you're watching, and it is amazing. And you're like, damn, Fosse delivers.
There's a lot more Joe Gideon is such a genius moments in this than there are in other things.
I think 8.5 is like, oh, Guido's such a genius also, but you don't see him being a genius. You just know that everybody thinks he's a genius and he thinks he's a genius. You don't see evidence of him being a genius.
Right, like in this, there's the scene where he where the producer of Lenny is like, the backers are breathing down my neck. What are you doing? You're editing this for months and months. And Joe's just like, you got to sit down and watch this. And the producer watches the edit and he's like, it's better. God damn it, he's right. It's better. Like, there's a lot more like, he was right all along.
That part was so eye-rolling.
I know,
I'm like, oh my God, you're just like putting in this thing about how great this guy thinks you are.
Yeah, he literally has a woman say to John Lithgow playing probably a Hal Prince analog, next to Joe Gideon, you're my favorite director.
He presents his analog Joe Gideon as a genius, but also a total asshole in a way that 8.5 and Alex in Wonderland don't quite do. He is more harsh on himself in all that jazz than I would say the other two movies are. He's shown as being a womanizer and being kind of an asshole and making really poor life choices in terms of his health and caring about nothing but his work.
Yeah, I mean, and this movie has a certain element of the self-punishment to it. Like, he wants to see himself suffer on screen.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, so you had said you felt like the way he explores the theme of death is sophomoric. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on that? Like, what do you think is sophomoric about it?
Fosse sets down to ruminate about death, and I feel like the experience that he had, he talks about it. He's like, I want to live. Like, this has given me a lease on life. I want more life. I don't think of myself as somebody who's obsessed with death. Of course, he obviously was completely obsessed with death. Gwen Verdon had a quote about him that was like, I never felt jealous about him with other women because I always knew his true love affair was with death. Which explains why he's got Jessica Lange in here in the most 8.5 he touches. He's having an ongoing conversation with the specter of death, played by Jessica Lange the whole time.
Who's also kind of like the ideal woman type.
Yes, right. This is about his romance with her, but all they ever say to each other are these little quips. You know, he's like, oh, I guess I need some pills now. And she's like, oh, I like that, Joe. I like that. And it's like, right, she's death. She wants him to die.
So you're saying the movie's obsessed with death, but it never goes farther than he's obsessed with death.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, because he's a visual person. I mean, he's a choreographer. He can dance it, but he's not a deep thinker. He's a person who was put in the position of other people saying, "You're a deep thinker. Tell us what you think about this."
Like 8.5 has genuine, deep dialogue that the characters say to criticize the film that you're watching. And that's not the case with all that jazz.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that Fosse essentially has a pretty nasty view of the world. He's got a really grimy sensibility. This movie looks nasty.
It's very unpolished, very brown and gauzy.
And very sweaty. This movie is all about human frailty, right? Because it's about him undergoing these operations.
Health issues, yeah.
You know, he has an operation in it. You're seeing the sort of mortality of every person. You're getting a sort of greasy look on the walls. Yeah, it's a kind of a grimy, oppressive milieu. And this is not the case with the other movies.
Right.
I feel like Fosse kind of wants to shove your nose in the dirt a lot of the times. He wants to tell you, like, you realize this is all bullshit, man.
I wanted to ask, he's telling this story about something that happened in his life. It is not your normal 8.5 story about somebody having writer's block or not having an idea for what to make next.
Yeah.
But he still decides to make it an 8.5 film anyways. And in my opinion, the fantasy elements, not to sound eye-rolly pretentious by using this phrase, but the fantasy elements really elevate the film.
Yes.
Quite a lot.
Absolutely.
Like, it takes it from just a film about somebody's life to a real work of art. Otherwise, he could just tell the story in just a linear way about how he had this heart attack while trying to do too much at once. How do you think the 8.5 framing affects the way this movie turned out? Do you like it? Do you think it adds to it?
Again, this is also trying to meld the abstractness of his choreography with a rather literal picture of his life. Like, it's not the actual interactions that he has with people are never very fantastical. They're all very real, sort of, and often very business oriented discussions that he's having. And so I think that, yeah, making it a fantasy helps merge the conceptual aspects of the choreography with the literal aspects of the story.
Yeah. This movie, it doesn't resonate with me super strongly. I do love the dance numbers, love the different stuff that Fosse is doing in the movie, but it doesn't hit me that hard. I don't connect with it that much. I'm sure it's different for you, Sam.
Don't be so quick to assume that.
I mean, I guess we'll see at the very end when we do our Cold Stone rating. It still is, though, for sure, a work of art.
It was definitely, compared to 8.5. And I think some people found it lacking. There's a Siskel and Ebert argument where Ebert is very caught on this is just 8.5. And I feel like a lot of that is born of the fact that he hadn't seen 8.5 probably in a minute. Because it's not that 8.5.
It's very different. It's like 8.5 is the framing device, so to speak.
Well, and it's just, that Fosse has a Fellini influence because Sweet Charity is a musical that he conceived of for Gwen Verdon, and the first film that he directed is an adaptation of Knights of Cabiria, the Fellini movie.
Right.
Another classic musicalized title, right? Knights of Cabiria becomes Sweet Charity, right? It's got a lot of similar elements. The burlesque sexual awakening as a young boy thing is very Fellini, except in this instance, he's in the position of being Saragina, kind of, because he has to be the entertainer while he's got the cum-stained pants. That sequence is all very shame-based, and it starts off with him being ashamed of learning Latin in front of the girl, and then he's ashamed of his sexuality, mixing dance, which is kind of Fosse's whole take on theater, I would say. Bob Fosse is a product of a time when, he was like a kid from the old neighborhood, right? Who's taken ballet lessons. And he has to hide it in shame because as a boy, he'll get beaten up. He was in the army. This is a boy. He clearly has a little bit of shame about the Broadway-ness of himself and his life. And I think a lot of his work in the 70s is him trying to kind of make this stuff a little cooler. That comes from a place of somebody who is ashamed of the undiluted version of it, if that makes sense.
And one of the ways to do that is to have your dancers do the flashy moves, do really visually great stuff, do all of that, but put them in a setting of a nasty room. It was received very well critically. Nominated for 9 Oscars, and it won 4 of them. Best Original Score, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Film Editing.
Yeah, totally should win.
But one of the things it was nominated for was Best Picture. And it was the last musical nominated for Best Picture until Disney's Beauty and the Beast in 1992, which was animated. And it was the last live action musical until 2002, Moulin Rouge. So the fact that it as a musical was nominated for Best Picture is pretty amazing. Although I guess musicals back in the day were considered more...
Yeah, they used to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and this is really the culmination of experimental musicals having having their day in the sun in the 70s. People were really experimenting with like nervous breakdowns in musical theater form in this period. And,
Can you give me examples of other musicals doing that at the time?
The ending of Pippin. Pippin and All That Jazz have similar endings where there's sort of journeys into your subconscious and broad themes being manifested by these figures in your life that are kind of guiding you through your psyche and what really matters to you and getting down deep at the real root of what life's all about, man. And this is one of the clearest examples, I would think, of somebody trying to translate these weird conceptual moments that you can have in a musical, like the ending of Pippin, or something like, having a weird narrator character who's interacting with your main character. This is what he's kind of trying to put on screen in a way that doesn't seem as silly as it normally would. You can suspend your disbelief in a certain way in musicals, and Fosse's trying to see if he can put you in this kind of like ecstatic state watching a movie like this. And people probably thought at the time, oh, there's going to be more movies like this. And then, unfortunately, kind of musical theater and auteurism in film died. And I think that's really prevented us from having anything like this, except maybe like Tick, Tick, Boom is the closest thing to something like this that I've seen in a while. Do you want to talk about the 1980 Oscars?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of the all-time great Best Actor races, for example. You have Jack Lemmon in The China Syndrome, Al Pacino in Justice for All, one of his many losses, Roy Scheider in All That Jazz, who we haven't really talked about, and we should talk about it in a second. Peter Sellers for Being There, and the winner, Dustin Hoffman in Kramer versus Kramer, winning his first Oscar.
Damn, that is a crazy lineup. I have not seen And Justice for All. That's the only one on this list that I haven't seen. But, Al Pacino, so
yeah, it's the movie where you got, you're out of order, he's out of order, this whole court's out of order.
I mean, that part alone, I guess. I understand why he was nominated. That's a crazy year for Best Actor.
This is Scheider's real big chance. You want to take a second to talk about Scheider?
Yeah, he's great in it. He has a sexiness that I did not think this actor would be able to have. One of the great against type castings that I think that I can think of. I think of Roy Scheider as being just basically rugged as hell. He's famous for playing a cop, like the sheriff in Jaws, right? Yeah.
And he's got leathery skin. Somehow they managed to make him look pale in this movie in some moments, pale and sickly. Do you know who was originally cast?
No.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Interesting.
And he was coming off of his Best Actor win for The Goodbye Girl, and apparently he was having some personal problems, and he felt very self-conscious about having to do the choreography, which there isn't that much of.
No, it's just like the last number, really, where he actually dances.
Yeah, and there's moments where, you'd have to be athletically holding up a woman or something like that, right? Which, Fosse was like, Scheider was great for that stuff. He was an athlete. And I guess this is, in a way, this will go down as the ultimate Roy Scheider performance, probably, because it's the only movie that's really fully on his shoulders. And you've never seen anybody play any character like this, let alone him.
Yeah, he's really great in it.
Still, though, I don't know if I feel like Peter Sellers and Dustin Hoffman are banned.
Yeah. Roy Scheider just got bad luck that this was the year when he was in All That Jazz.
Yeah. And by the way, this is also the same year as Apocalypse Now. So this is a big rematch from Coppola and Bob Fosse from the Godfather year.
Since Fosse won Best Director.
And who won Best Director this year?
Robert Benton for Kramer versus Kramer.
Robert Benton for Kramer. This is a big year for Kramer versus Kramer, a movie that I recently rewatched, and I think gets a bit of a rep that's like, oh, that movie's so boring compared to some of these other films, which it kind of is. But I don't know. I think it's a really incredibly made film, and Hoffman is certainly amazing. I mean, the acting is absolutely incredible. Like,
yeah, I think that movie's good.
I think it's really good. I think that it's a more successful movie. All That Jazz is kind of a movie that I think you can watch it and be like, yeah, that's okay. I don't know if it was fully successful. Like, I think All That Jazz is a movie that, I mean, you want to talk pretentiousness. Like, this is an example, I would say, of something that a lot of times he's reaching for a depth and a meaning and even just a visual style that I don't know if I feel like he's achieving. Like, I would say that All That Jazz has a certain amount of pretentiousness.
Yeah.
Anytime he's trying to talk to deep themes. And I think this movie, like a couple of the other movies of 1979, which have also aged well, was met with a kind of like, okay, this is your masterpiece. I don't know if it's really fully successful. And by the way, we didn't even mention all of like the movies that are happening this year. The Rose, Breaking Away, Starting Over, Manhattan is this year. Alien is this year. Norma Ray, The Black Stallion, 1941. La Cage aux Folles.
Star Trek, the motion picture.
It's absurd. I've never seen The Rose. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't.
We'll watch it at some point. But an amazing Oscars. It's a really fun one to watch. Hoffman actually gives like a really good speech, Best Actor win, where he kind of recapitulates the reason for the Oscars' existence. You should watch that. Yeah, so Fosse, this is our first discussion of him. We will probably talk about him, I imagine, one or two other times. He really made 3 new Hollywood movies. I don't really think Sweet Charity and Star 80 can truly be considered in the new Hollywood era. They're a little bit outside of it in their way.
But we'll talk about Cabaret for sure.
And Lenny.
Lenny?
I think we'll probably talk about Lenny.
Oh, from this movie, seeing the clips of it, I'm not excited to talk about Lenny, to be honest. Maybe we can bundle that into like a Dustin Hoffman episode.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. Speaking of bundling, like this is the movie I would say out of these 4 that we're talking about that we're really burning on this episode. All That Jazz, in most people's minds, I would think deserves its own episode. It's a movie that you got to see. I watched this movie for the first time when I was a child, when I was homesick, recovering. Something.
It's a good movie to watch if you're sick.
I guess it was also it can be kind of depressing, and it's sort of taking you on a very dark journey into your own body.
That's true. Oh, I hated the heart surgery scene.
Yeah, a harrowing scene, and very well edited. He's kind of a sick fuck, Fosse. Like he wants to shove your nose in it in this, and yeah, he puts me in a real nasty little state of mind.
I couldn't remember if I've seen All That Jazz before we just rewatched it for this. I think I have. It's hard because I have seen Fosse Verdon, and it goes over a lot of the similar stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to know more about Fosse, you can watch that TV series. But you should also just watch some Fosse.
There's a great video of Pippin, the show of Pippin. Ben Vereen, who's famous for playing the leading player in Pippin, is also in this movie, and he is incredible.
Yeah.
Ben Vereen is obviously one of the most amazing dancers and presences, but he's just so perfect at getting this kind of smiling vision of total menace and like dread. He is the perfect harbinger of death, I would say, in a way that the Jessica Lange character, or as she's known as Angelique, is less effective, I would say, as far as representing death.
Yeah, Jessica Lange's character is just a pretty face.
Yeah.
Like, it did not actually need a great actress for that.
No, right. I mean, yeah, Jessica Lange is a little bit wasted.
Yeah.
I would say. But Ben Vereen is absolutely incredible.
So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pippin, what is it, on YouTube or something?
It's probably on YouTube. You could also watch it on Broadway HD. I've done Pippin twice. Have we talked about this?
No, we
This
haven't.
is probably a reason why, like, Fosse... Because, again, I'm not a dancer, really. I know a lot about Fosse. I know a lot about what Fosse represents. He's never really spoken to me that much. I feel like I'm actually I was not looking forward to talking about All That Jazz as much as the other movies, I think, because I'm kind of similar to you. I feel like this movie doesn't quite speak to me on the level that, like, you're assuming it does and should. Because
right.
of who I
assume
am.
That you love this movie.
But not quite. And I think that's something that I hold extra against it almost a little bit.
Because you should, because of your musical theater background. You mean?
Yeah, and because I get exactly what he's doing. I really do get Fosse.
And you like grimy looking movies more than I do.
Yes, I do. Right. But this is a little bit off. This is not my level of grime or something.
I think one thing that could make this film a lot better is if the songs were better. Like, some of the dance sequences are amazing, but the songs themselves, none of them are catchy. I hate to be lame and say that I want my musical songs to be catchy, but like, I'm not going to be like wanting to put those songs on while I'm driving around. They don't really hit. They don't have emotional moments.
Well, Cabaret, the movie, what his big revolution in that and why he won the directing Oscar was he excised a lot of the musical aspects of it and made it a movie with moments of cabaret performances of some songs that could be taken out of the context of the story, right? So
they're like all diegetic, basically.
Yes, they're all diegetic, and they're all just these Brechtian commentaries on the action. It belies this embarrassment about the form, but not even embarrassment. Like, he knows what you need to translate it to a movie. It's just then he makes the movie a little boring, in my opinion, by doing that. And I think he has a similar level of embarrassment about the music in this movie. Like, I think that he's kind of picking those songs and making them sound kind of corny on purpose. Fosse shows, I think, are pretty famous for not being the best shows in the world without him. Pippin is kind of a dumb show unless you have amazing choreography and amazing leading player and stuff.
I think Chicago is the exception.
Chicago is one that I've really grown on. Chicago is a really good acting piece. You can play some really fucked up characters in that.
And the songs are great.
And the songs are good. But Fosse, for the most part, I think, doesn't care that much about the piece needing to be brilliant. It's just kind of beats that he's choreographing to. I don't know.
Okay, so overall, though, as an 8.5 movie, I think it is uniquely its own film, and it's a very cool version of 8.5, despite the fact that it might not resonate with either of us that strongly.
Yeah. It's probably the most enduring and beloved of all of these movies, arguably as much as 8.5 itself.
Yeah, although I don't think it might be as enduring as 8.5, but in my opinion, 8.5 is a masterpiece, whereas I would never call All That Jazz a masterpiece.
I would agree.
Okay, next up,
Stardust Memories.
our first Woody Allen movie that we will be discussing on this podcast. So buckle up.
Yeah, typically considered a bit of a minor Woody, not most people's favorite, but certainly from him at the height of his powers in the same way that a lot of these other works are.
Are you going to put them to sleep again, or are we done with that?
Yeah, you're going to go to sleep a third time, and then you're going to wake up, and we're going to be in the magical world of a nebbishy director with glasses, talking to some ladies, and you're going to love it. 3, 2, 1. Shh. All right, wake up.
Good morning. Good morning. Sam's in a really good mood, and I'm trying to, match that. So this is my fake good mood voice.
I'm in a really good mood? What are you talking about?
You're, going around being like, okay, Stardust Memories. Okay, you ready? Let's go. Yeah. I'm not in a bad mood, though. So it's morning, and I'm ready to fucking record this segment.
I feel like you're the one that's throwing crazy energy right now. I don't think that I was giving you anything comparable to what you're giving me right this second.
I'm just trying to match what I saw.
Okay, well.
Give it as I see it.
I am excited to complete this episode. This episode that we've taken how long have we been working on this? More than a month at this point?
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, we've been recording
Easily.
each one in segments.
We recorded an entire other episode in the middle of this. Between All That Jazz and this, we did
Alien. We've been talking about this episode forever. We were really into this idea. So I hope it lived up to our expectations.
I think it didn't, but that's okay.
Okay, well, I guess nothing ever does.
Yeah. I guess this episode was appropriately stretchy and arguably pretentious, you could say.
Indeed.
Some of these films are, more successful than others, and I think some of our segments are also going to be more successful than others. And maybe they won't match up with the film's level of success.
Okay, so this is our first Woody Allen movie.
Woody Allen.
Do you want to first talk about, how do each of us feel about Woody Allen?
Yes. Do you want to start?
Woody Allen is not my favorite, but I think he's a really great filmmaker. So
very incisive, honey. Thank you. A wonderful insight to start the episode.
Here's my thing is that, all right, I'm going to word this carefully. So most of Woody Allen's movies have a Woody Allen stand-in character.
Yes.
I don't like the way the Woody Allen stand-in character treats women.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt that way even before hearing about the big controversy surrounding Woody Allen, which we'll, briefly address.
You said that very Woody Allen-y, which we'll, briefly address.
I've definitely had experiences watching his movies where I find myself annoyed and disliking aspects about it just because I don't want to watch a character like that treat women in that way. And to be more specific,
yes.
To be more specific, like condescending or liking younger women for, a highly intelligent person liking younger women for reasons that don't really have anything to do with their intelligence. It just feels like patronizing older man enjoying the presence of young, empty-headed women.
I would say that that's something that sometimes crops up in Woody Allen movies, but I think you can also argue that the way that he treats the more intelligent and capable women, and certainly the way that he writes a lot of those characters is, he's often working through issues with his second wife, Louise Lasser, who was, by his, description, extremely neurotic, a huge drug addict, crazy basically. And I think that another thing you could argue with is that even when he's got a woman that he sort of respects in the movie, she kind of acts like a lunatic or like a jerk to him sometimes.
Yeah.
We're starting off rather negatively.
We are.
In a way that's...
No, so I want to say that, so I've had that feeling based on probably the first couple Woody Allen movies I watched were ones where it was like especially not great watching those relationships. And so I remember having a conversation with you about how I didn't like the way female characters were portrayed in his movies.
Right.
And you were trying to convince me that Woody Allen's actually really good at writing female characters.
Yes, he's typically way better than certainly most new Hollywood directors, I would say, as far as interesting roles for women, juicy roles. He's gotten like 70 different awards nominations for actresses in his movies. It's kind of...
That's pretty amazing.
Crazy. No, it's like he's really, really good at that compared to most people, I would say, by some metrics.
And so I've watched more Woody Allen movies since then, trying to pay attention to that. And I was especially paying attention to that when watching Stardust Memories.
Oh, were you?
Obviously, we have talked so far in this episode about how are the women portrayed.
Are we going to hold off on talking about Stardust Memories specifically, though?
Okay, let's hold off on talking about Stardust Memories.
Because I think there's a lot of table setting. Because this is a movie that is a crucial film for understanding the Woody Allen trajectory.
Yes. Oh, can you first explain your relationship to Woody Allen?
Yes.
And then take us through the trajectory.
Yeah, right. Okay, so my relationship to Woody Allen is, for most of my life, he was far and away my favorite director. He was certainly an early director that my dad exposed me to, and it took a while for me to really fully get on board with it. But once I got the bug, I was very influenced by his acting style. And, it's weird. I certainly had a lot of ideas of his that were implanted in my brain, but it's not like I was ever trying to imitate Woody Allen. Like, for example, I really internalized the whole New York versus LA thing, the conflict that's in Annie Hall, and his character is so anti-LA. I love that movie, but all that ever did for me was inculcate in me a realization that I am the Annie Hall who likes LA and I don't like New York. So it's not like I was ever like watching Woody Allen and being like, yeah, current rock music sucks. I only want to listen to old Dixieland jazz and stuff like that. It's that he was an individual and that he is a singular force.
And that he had strong opinions about things.
That he had strong opinions that you don't hear in mainstream culture. Yet he's also very approachable. I think there's this perception of Woody Allen by a lot of people that he makes like very highfalutin intellectual movies, and I don't think that's what he's going for at all, personally. I think he's a bit of an anti-intellectual in a way, or he's a pseudo-intellect, a proud pseudo-intellectual.
Sorry, this is briefly talking about a Stardust Memories thing, but it's not diving into it.
No, this is one of his great quotes about this in this movie.
Well, I don't have the exact quote. I just know that one of his fans in the movie accuses him of being anti-intellectual, which for me, I was confused by that. No. Do people really see him that way?
No, he is. And that's the thing. Like, this is what people don't get about, like, he's actually a lot more complicated and weird as far as his relationship to a lot of the stuff. But people feel like he's talking down to them, but he's not. He obviously has a strain of intellectualism and a strain of interest in quote unquote high culture. But he describes himself as, he's like, I grew up on comic books and sports. I like stupid comedy movies and shit. Like, I learned a certain amount of stuff about, Freud or Nietzsche or Cezanne or whatever, enough to be able to make a casual reference to these things. He's not talking about anything with the depth of 8.5 ever in his movies. His movies are much frothier, I would say, than a truly deep movie. Like, his movies are, they're usually about people who are in the intelligentsia, but they're not painted as being smart. They're painted as being myopic a lot of the time, I would say.
To be honest, I don't fully agree with what you just said about him not having profound topics in his films.
Well, yes, this is something where we're going to have to get into, I've sat and lived with Woody Allen's bon mots and his deep thoughts for a lot of my life, and I've really turned them over in my head, and I have a lot of thoughts about his...
How deep are they?
And his little sum-ups and stuff. Okay, so do you want to do a quick go through Woody Allen?
Yeah. Although I do want to say, I guess in terms of the anti-intellectual thing, there is, I forget if it was Manhattan or Annie Hall, but I guess I am thinking back to some scene in one of his movies where there are people standing behind him in line discussing art films and being really pretentious about it, and he's like mocking them and laughing at them.
He brings up Marshall McLuhan, and he's like, Marshall McLuhan's like, you know nothing of my work,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a
I don't know
classic
who that
moment.
is.
You don't know who Marshall McLuhan is. Anyways, yeah, it's this weird combination where like he is claiming he's smarter than them, but it is a kind of a version of like I'm not being as pretentious as you.
But he still is. You have this specific definition of pretentious, which I do not agree with. I personally think Woody Allen is very pretentious. Not in a bad way, but that he's also annoyed by pretentious people.
Well, no, I think he's like me. Like this, honestly.
Yes.
No, seriously. Like this is an aspect that I really do relate to him. Is like I'm not just interested in the lowest common denominator kind of shit, but if you put me in a room with an actual expert on Thomas Pynchon, I can't hold my own. I've read a lot of his books, and I've enjoyed them, and I could make a funny quip about them, and I could reference things from Thomas Pynchon, but I couldn't teach a course in Thomas Pynchon. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference here.
Yeah, well, the only people who could do that are people who've literally dedicated their lives to that. So that's a weird standard you're holding yourself against.
There's a kind of person who can enjoy a painting, and then there's the kind of person who can really explain to you like what makes a painting great. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just like
I do know what you mean, but I
like-
fil like currently
nobody enjoys
way-
paintings
right,
or can explain.
exactly.
That. I know.
So if
So,
you
that it
even-
seems like he's so much more highfalutin.
No, personally, I think if you even enjoy art house stuff or experimental stuff or any of that, you are in the pretentious realm and not in a bad way.
But Woody Allen, that's the thing. He is a mainstream filmmaker, a comedy filmmaker. Starting off, going for low comedy in a certain way.
Yeah.
Low comedy mixed with high comedy.
Earlier. In
Earlier.
his career.
A mainstream American filmmaker who references foreign masters in his work.
Right.
But when he references those people, you can see the difference. These movies aren't quite art house. He's going for a more mainstream thing than like a truly art house.
We're going to be getting into Stardust Memories discussion for me to engage with that.
No, you're right. You're right. Okay. So you want me to do a quick rundown of Woody Allen? This episode has so much just of me talking, by the way.
Well, that's your fault for knowing these filmmakers better than me, like Bob Fosse and Woody Allen. Okay. Get over it.
Well, I'm sorry. I just needed to acknowledge it that I feel like I'm just kind of ranting at you. But okay, quick Woody Allen bringing us up to this point in Stardust Memories, okay? He's a kid from Coney Island, grew up pretty lower class. His father was a bookmaker. You've seen depictions of his early years in various things. He starts selling jokes to the newspaper when he's a teenager. Because this is a pathway that you used to have. You could just like sell jokes. And he's written about this. He's like, these jokes were terrible by the standards of an actual joke that would make anybody laugh these days. But humor was less hard back then. He gets work as a comedy writer in the 50s. He works with Sid Caesar. Then his agents convince him to become a comedian as a method of becoming famous so that he can sort of write his own ticket as a writer, which is always his goal. Writes a couple of movies in the 60s, What's New Pussycat and What's Up Tiger Lily, which he pretty much disavows and doesn't think they're worth much, even though, they were both pretty successful. And him, being a very famous comedian, up-and-coming writer, and just kind of having, we'll get more into this, but kind of maybe one of the most defined star personas of any actor ever. Maybe John Wayne has a more defined star persona, but not that much more defined than Woody Allen. So, he was he was a star, basically, right? He was always going to be what he was going to be. And so then, he gets the money to start making some very, very silly movies. Take the Money and Run, everything you always wanted to know about sex, Sleeper, Bananas, Love and Death. These movies are very broadly comedic, utilizing his comedic persona, which is like a sort of coward based on like Bob Hope in classic films. Every film gets bigger and bigger. He gets a lot of acclaim. Everybody says these are incredibly smart, sophisticated, but genuinely funny comedies. Then in the middle of the 70s, he gets enough cachet that he's like, okay, I'm going to start revealing a little bit more of myself. And so he makes Annie Hall, which wins Best Picture, wins Best Actress, Screenplay. He's director. Does he win director? I can't remember. Oscar player, huge hit. Everybody loves it. And you just have to understand kind of how mind-blowing this would be. Like, imagine if Groucho Marx all of a sudden was in a movie where he was just, like, in relationships. And, like, he was not really fully divested from his comedic persona. Still basically doing the bit that you'd come to know him. But now you're sort of having to take him seriously in a real-world context, and it's working. And then he makes these 4 movies in the late 70s. Annie Hall, Interiors, Manhattan, and then Stardust Memories. And I would say these constitute a particular period of Woody Allen that most people would consider the high point, and that I would consider a bit of a distraction for him.
You're such, I don't know,
What? I'm such a what?
You're such a contrarian.
No, I'm not.
You're calling like Annie Hall like a distraction and not necessarily his high point.
Well, let me explain it, okay? So Woody Allen's made like 50 movies. He has an incredibly diverse filmography, considering how distinctive his style is. Mm-hmm. Far more diverse and yet distinctive than any director we're ever going to talk about, probably, right? I strongly prefer his work to the work of almost any other new Hollywood figure. I mean, this is a flavor to me that is much richer than most people and much more consistently achieved success rate. People love to shit on Woody Allen and say, like, oh, sure, he's made 50 movies, but like half of them are terrible. That's not true at all. Like, most of them are pretty great, and like a couple of them are not good, but they're all very interesting. He loves taking big swings and taking risks. People love dunking on him for those risks, but he kind of has this perfect artist attitude of like, I don't care that you that failed. Like, I should be taking risks and I should be failing sometimes. But back to my basic thesis. I think this period, I love interiors and I love Annie Hall. Manhattan is not really my movie. I think there's a lot of stuff about it that has never made sense to me on a philosophical level. And I think this is also kind of true of Annie Hall. Interiors is probably my favorite movie of this period. But more or less, what I think the problem that Woody Allen faced was, and what I think the reaction to Stardust Memories helped him with, which the reaction was strongly negative. Like, this movie was a kind of his first major folly, right?
Yeah.
He became obsessed in the late 70s with making these big epic statement movies. All of these movies, except for Interiors, which is a tragedy that he made in the wake of Annie Hall when he just had as much power as he could do whatever he wanted, and he just made kind of a small tragedy that was not really seen by many people, but I really love that movie. But Annie Hall, Manhattan, Stardust Memories are all very much of a piece with each other, and they're all these like big statement movies where it's like Woody Allen is going to attempt to wrestle with the meaning of life. Okay. You know, he does these little sum-ups at the end of these movies where he's like, you know, I'm thinking about it. It's just like, you know, what is the meaning? What is the point of life? There's misery. There's endless, suffering. But, you know, you kind of got to do it, right? You know, I mean, and like that's the end that he comes to in all of these movies. And I think he's just been forced by the culture to exceed his own abilities a little bit. He doesn't really have a deep thing to say about the meaning of life. Like, I've never liked the "we need the eggs" sum up at Annie Hall. I've never liked the whole central metaphor of the title of Manhattan and what Manhattan means in the movie. I've never really gotten it. And in Stardust Memories, do you want to start talking about this now, finally?
Sure.
I think he really doesn't have a lot to say. You could argue that it's part of the point is that this guy's run out of ideas and run out of thoughts. But I think the paucity of depth in his little sum up of the meaning of life at the end of the movie is quite lacking, in my opinion. Okay, now, do you have things to say now?
Have you been preparing that whole Woody Allen diatribe all week?
I've been shotgunning Woody Allen movies. I've watched, almost 10 Woody Allen movies, minor works, a lot of them that I hadn't seen. My favorite Woody Allen period is the Pharaoh years. I think that's his best period.
To clarify, the movies he made with Mia Farrow.
Yeah, that's my Woody Allen shit. I think these movies are a little too grand. He's being given a little too much license to, like, explain life to us, Woody.
So, well, first I want to say Pauline Kael agrees with you.
Yeah.
She has this quote, "In Stardust Memories, we get more of the same thoughts over and over. It's like watching a loop. The material is fractured and the scenes are very short, but there was not a single one that I was sorry to see end. Stardust Memories doesn't seem like a movie or even like a filmed essay. It's nothing." She says regarding his existential concerns that he presents in the movie, this isn't a quote, I'm just summarizing. Kael basically says they aren't worth sharing with the world because we've all experienced them, so he's not presenting anything novel to any of us. But I'm going to disagree with you here. I feel like you place a lot of weight on his sum up at the end of those movies.
Yes.
And I don't. It's how the whole experience of watching the movie is.
Great.
I don't care if he tries to give a sum up and it's just kind of like lame and doesn't amount to much. For me, a movie should be considered in its whole. Most movies don't stick the landing, and I don't even think I like Stardust Memories for me. I like the ending. I like all the different aspects about the ending, but I guess one part of the ending that I'm thinking of is just seeing a shot of, who is it? Isabel lying on the floor.
Oh, no, that's Dory.
One of the women that he likes lying on the floor. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Dory.
Yeah.
Dory, his, like, the one he can't help but feel drawn to.
Yeah.
Dory lying on the floor, and he just feels love for her and seduction by her character and stuff. To me, that is profound. That is deep, even if it's simple. Profoundness doesn't have to be novel. It doesn't have to be complicated. I often think profundity is just very simple stuff that you just realize it's more important than we give it credit for. And profound stuff is sometimes just realizing cliches you've heard your whole life are actually incredibly accurate. So I really did find a lot of things in Stardust Memories to be profound. I did not find the simplicity of it a turnoff.
It wasn't the simplicity, it's the... And I know that this, Woody would maybe argue this is a feature, not a bug. It's the him attempting to make a statement, and then as he's saying it, it just falls apart and he doesn't even know what he's talking about. But that's part of it, is like his point is like, there is no point to life.
Yeah.
So like you could say that that's on purpose, that he's doing that, but it's like he's done that so many times in these movies now. Like, again, you're right. I and all of the critics at the time clearly had a lot of Woody Allen movies in our heads, and that's affecting the way we look at this movie.
That's true. And I haven't seen another Woody Allen movie in a while.
Right.
And I certainly haven't seen Annie Hall or Manhattan in a while.
Yeah.
I'm not coming in with as much Woody baggage, and I could imagine it feeling very repetitive if I had just seen those movies.
Yeah.
In terms of how I feel about the Woody Allen controversy, we're not going to litigate all the details of like the Dylan sexual abuse allegations, but it's been found by multiple courts that there is not enough evidence to suspect that he did sexually abuse Dylan, and there is a lot of reason to suspect that Mia Farrow kind of brainwashed Dylan into like thinking this certain thing happened when it didn't, and like multiple family members have come out to say as much, and we will never really know, but for me personally, don't have enough reason to suspect that did actually happen. Now, the fact that he married Soon Yi and started a relationship with her when she was 20 and he was a father figure, even though not her father.
And arguably not a father figure, he would say. Like, he didn't even... They didn't live together.
They didn't interact much.
He claims they didn't really know each other that well.
But still,
I don't
he was
know.
way older, and she was the adopted daughter of his girlfriend.
Yes. It's not a situation you want to find yourself in, no matter how much you like a person.
The thing with me is that that's just fucking creepy.
Right.
It grosses me out. It's creepy. I'm not going to not watch his movies because of it. I don't think it's grounds to be canceled. Like, they're still in a relationship. Right. I'm not going to like deny her own agency in choosing that relationship. It's just gross and creepy to me. And that creepy behavior of the way Woody Allen treats younger women is reflected in so many of his movies in a way that creeps me out, and creeped me out before I even heard about all of the drama with his personal life. So that's my thing, is that I'm sorry, I get creeped out by older men being in relationships with very young women. It just really creeps me out.
I'm not here to say that you can't condemn Woody Allen, and I'm not going to say that you can't be disgusted by anybody for any reason. But there is this thing where people want Woody Allen to be canceled in a way that they don't really want other people to be canceled, I would say. Would you agree with this?
No, I think the general public wants a lot of people canceled. I don't know about it as much anymore, but I think there's a lot of people who are gray areas.
Do you see how people write about him on Letterboxd?
No, I haven't.
People despise Woody Allen, and they want you to know it. And they want you to feel really weird for liking his movies.
I'm still going to watch his movies. I am going to give him his due to the best of my ability in this episode. Like, I'm going to speak about the positive things about this movie, despite the fact that he creeps me out a little bit in terms of his relationship to younger women. It just creeps me out. But I'm going to not let that affect how I view this movie to the best of my ability.
We have different philosophies about this. I can't, make something not bother me. It either bothers me or it doesn't. I can't watch The Cosby Show anymore because he disgusts me, and that makes the show disgust me. Woody Allen doesn't disgust me. If he did disgust me the way that he disgusts other people, I would not. And his movies have been seriously dinged by this stuff for me. I don't really have the same level of appreciation that I used to. And what's unfortunate about that is it might just be other people's voices in my ear telling me that I need to dislike it more. That's the problem with cancel culture. It's not an injustice to Woody. It's a disservice to me. And people who want to be able to have this flavor of movie that you get nowhere else. Woody Allen is a genre. It's not just a filmmaker. Polanski made 2 or 3 movies that people care about. Woody Allen is a whole wing of cinema. That's my thing.
I fully agree that, the reason I don't want to let all of the ickiness surrounding Woody Allen affect the way I view his movies is not because it's a disservice to him, as you mentioned. It's because I love movies.
Yes.
And I love learning about the historical context in which movies happen. So if we're pretending like these movies suddenly, oh, we thought they were good, but they're bad.
Right, which is what people say now.
Yeah.
Like, they say, I realize those movies are bad now.
Right. Then it's like, first of all, totally fucking with your ability to perceive quality in art. And it's messing with the historical context in which you're placing these movies. It's fine if you don't like the movies. Like, I genuinely don't enjoy Manhattan. I can't remember if it was Manhattan or Annie Hall. We'll cover them both on the podcast.
Yeah.
There are things about them that I don't enjoy, and I will say as much. But if I do enjoy something about it, and I pretend that I don't just because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to say, like, then I'm not really being an honest film lover. And I'd so much rather say, yeah, this person creeped me out or did genuinely bad stuff. We will talk about Polanski movies. He did straight up bad stuff.
Yes.
But I still want to talk about those movies as a film lover and as somebody who places importance on the historical context of film. I do not want to erase that history because then, there's just going to be giant gaps in our understanding of how art progresses. So I think address the bad shit, but I still want to engage with the art.
I also just I'm sorry to make this sort of a crass comparison, but it's like, I feel like if we lost Chinatown and Rosemary's Baby and Repulsion and Knife in the Water, that's not a huge loss to cinema. Like, Polanski made good movies, but, like, they're not genre-defining works that nobody else makes anything like. Woody, this is an entire kind of movie, is really what I'm getting at. And people will look for any excuse not to read a book, not to see a movie, not to engage with a piece of culture, because there's a lot of culture out there, right? I think that his movies are a big loss. Him as a figure is a big loss to culture.
Yeah. Maybe you all hate us at this point.
Yeah, maybe
but
you do.
We are going to talk about this movie. Can we just talk about the uncomfortable stuff and get past it? That way
In Stardust Memories?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Because I just want to, get past all the uncomfortable stuff.
Great, okay.
And then talk about the good stuff.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. But there's some really uncomfortable stuff in this movie.
It's awful. I don't know of shit in any Woody Allen. This is kind of one of his most scabrous?
I don't know how to say that word.
Movies ever. It's really dark. It's really fucked up. He goes there in some fucked up ways. I don't like it. I mean, Deconstructing Harry has some stuff like this, but this is, yeah, go ahead. Just
Sorry, you don't like this movie?
go ahead. Let's talk about it. Let's talk more about it. But,
okay.
But yeah, so this is one of his darkest movies, and he is trying to go fucked up a little bit, I would say.
All right, so here's some uncomfortable stuff in this movie. One of the female characters, Isabel, basically says there was a weird father-daughter incest relationship between them.
No, that's Dory.
I mixed up Isabel and Dory so many times. I honestly thought they were the same character until halfway through
Which
the movie.
I don't get, but go on.
They look very similar, and they're both, French.
And yet he's supposed to be thinking Jessica Winters is like Dory.
I know, it's weird.
No, they're not French. Charlotte Rampling's British.
She's got a French mouth.
She looks very Euro.
She's got a French mouth. For
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, dear.
I promise she's got a French mouth.
She has a French mouth.
It's like that thin-lipped mouth. Anyways,
Sure.
one of the female characters has an incesty father-daughter relationship. So there you go. That straight up, given the Soon-Yi, Woody Allen thing, retrospectively watching it, you're like, ooh, that's okay.
And if you thought that was the end of that trench that he's mining,
then, I guess it's Dory, accuses the Woody Allen stand-in, what's his name?
Sandy. Bates.
Sandy. She accuses Sandy of flirting with a 14-year-old.
Her cousin.
And
he's like, how am I going to flirt with a teenage relative?
And it's like, he doesn't deny it successfully. You do get the sense he probably did. The character probably did. Which is gross and creepy and felt like a small confession of guilt. It felt a little bit Louis C.K.-esque in terms of, bearing your warts through humor.
I think he was getting a little bit worried about presenting himself as too nice. I think he was trying to go after himself a little bit with this movie.
Yeah, but he, in this way, flirting with a 14-year-old, that's really going after yourself in a way that makes people realize, oh, shit.
It's also presented in the movie that it's maybe she's a little bit obsessed with this because she's had this incestuous relationship with her father, which he needles her about in a very fucked up way. And it's maybe you can't quite tell if he's over denying it or she's reading into everything.
It's not clear either way, but she is presented as a smart and perceptive character. And she's like, look, because I had those experiences, I know the signs.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like. I know that when some people view that glance over there, they assume it's innocent, but I know it's not.
Right.
So it's...
And then he's kind of goes into it and he's like, oh, what, like you never gave your glance like that to your daddy and stuff or something. It's like really bad.
It's bad. And then, I mean, this one isn't as bad, but it's still just like, ugh, is at the very end of the movie when the actresses, we'll get into the meta aspect, I guess, later. But the super meta ending, the actresses in the film are comparing notes about how Woody interacted with him. And they're like, oh, yeah, he opened his mouth during kissing scenes. Right. So basically, like, abusing his position.
To be fair, though, this is something Woody has never really been accused of impropriety in professional settings. He has dated people that he's worked with and stuff, but like
So this is more of a separating the Woody standing character like it's not purely just Woody.
Okay, to dip a toe more into this movie, Woody has said, as he always does with all these characters, but especially this one, this is not me. Right?
But there's obviously aspects of him in it, but it is not, like, you should not read it as fully Woody.
Yeah, you should. Again, the Woody Allen character is an outgrowth of his stand-up persona.
Yeah, like the whole
idea. He's not really like that.
Like him being a wimp and stuff. Yeah, I think he was like a sports guy.
Yeah, he's like, I'm an athlete. He's like a street kid. And like when you look at him talk in any interview, he's like the calmest person you've ever seen. Like he's not like freaking out unless he's doing a bit. He's very, measured, very cold and calculating in a way which you could also view as creepy in a sense. But he's not like this sort of like nervous, over the top nebbish in real life. And he adamantly claims that he's not.
Okay, so one more thing I want to bring up that was really uncomfortable in this film. Yeah. When Sandy, the Woody Allen stand-in, visits his sister.
Oh, God, yes! Yes! What the fuck, man? But this is, again, him just trying to go dark, I think. I don't get it. Up. It's so awful.
It's so random. It did not need to be in there. Okay, so what we're talking about is he goes to visit his sister, and there's a woman there who he recognizes. I don't know how to put this, like, not classically attractive woman.
Which this whole movie is full of not classically attractive people, and it's kind of nasty to the human race, you could argue. Slash Jews, some people would say.
Pauline Kael in particular feels like the movie is presenting... Yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah.
Woody goes to visit his sister. Sorry, Sandy goes to visit his sister, and there's a woman there he knows, and she's all beat up, like black and blue, and he's like, oh my God, what happened?
Wearing a shirt that says sexy.
Yeah, it's very... weird.
Yes.
And she says that she was robbed and the robber came in and beat her up and sexually abused her. And then there's a joke that she's like, and I didn't put up any resistance. And Sandy's like, yeah, I bet you didn't.
I bet you didn't, yeah. Right.
And so there's this joke that she wanted to be sexually abused by the robber. And it's just so fucked up.
It's really random, too. And like not, like I don't get it. Like what the fuck is going there? Like...
It had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I do not understand why that joke was there.
What?
And it was so gross.
What do you think he's trying to say with this movie? Because I know what Woody claims he's trying to say with this movie. And I know he's always claimed it's been very misinterpreted.
So all those like things I just listed?
Yes.
Those are the things I disliked about the movie.
Yeah.
I really liked this movie.
You did.
Everything else I really liked.
I was hoping that you did. Yeah, okay.
For me, a movie is not about the plot or the content.
Right.
It's the way it's presented. It's how I feel watching it.
Yeah.
It's the style. It's the structure. I know that I'm weird for having that opinion. Most people would be like, no, I care about the content and the plot. Like, you're telling a story, so of course I want to care about the story. That is not at all the important thing to me. So I don't give a shit if the story is one thing or another. To me, what this movie is about is Sandy liking one type of woman, but knowing he should be with another because that's a healthier relationship. Mm-hmm. That is the central conflict for me, is that he is drawn to the Dory type of character who is seductive and interesting, but she's got mental health problems. She's difficult to be with, and most of the time it's bad days, but the good days are really good. He is drawn to that, but he also really enjoys spending time with Isabel, who is more of a healthy person and happy, but maybe less interesting. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the point. What do you think the point of this movie is?
I mean, that's certainly one of the themes in the movie. I would say this is a movie that's a collection of themes.
Oh, I think another point is that it's doing 8.5. It's just like doing the 8.5 thing.
Right. This is the thing, is like Woody's in this, you got to think about like Woody being in this period where he's like, where can I go from here? He's kind of stuck, I would say, in Annie Hall and Manhattan and Stardust Memories, as he's like, okay, I figured out, like, I don't just have to make a silly comedy movie. I can make the movie everybody who's ever wanted to make a movie wants to make, which is me just putting my thoughts and my life on screen. I can make it conceptual. The structure aspect, this is why I've never understood why you don't like Woody Allen more. His movies are so imaginative in the structural fashion that I've always assumed you would respond a little bit more to like Annie Hall.
I think I've just been turned off by the Woody character.
Yeah, which
and
we'll
that turns me off strong enough. And I think
this one, it doesn't turn you off?
I think I was trying really hard to focus on not how the Woody stand-in was treating the female characters, but how the female characters were written. And also, I think that the annoying part of the Woody character didn't come through as much in this movie.
We have exact opposite views of this movie.
That's so funny.
So I have spent my whole life not getting at all what people find annoying about Woody Allen. People say, oh, he's insufferable. How can you stand being around that guy? To me, he's fascinating. I could not be more interested in this weird little guy. I think he's really cool to look at. I never get sick of his bit. I think that he knows how to cast himself very well. He has a very narrow range, but he knows what he's able to do. You don't get Woody Allen in any other form. Even when somebody's doing a great Woody Allen impression, like Owen Wilson or whatever, it's not quite that same tastiness as Woody Allen, where it's like, if I see Woody, like, it's not like I feel like Woody Allen in these movies is modeling like how to be in a real relationship. It's just that looking at him with these women in most of these movies, it's a more real depiction of what an actual relationship looks like, for better or worse. I'm sure that you have a certain aspect of like he's not hot enough for these women, right? Or like you don't see why they would like him.
Not in this movie, but in other movies.
Not in this movie, but in other movies.
Because he's a famous director.
Yes, no, and that's but okay, yes, this is the opposite. So in this movie, can I just say what I thought of this movie?
Yeah.
I thought it sucked. I remembered liking it so much more, and I was watching it, and after I'd watched I watched Hollywood Endings recently, Manhattan Murder Mystery, Alice, these really minor works. And this movie, I think, got terrible reputation at first and has since become pretty reclaimed in the Woody canon. But I was like, I'm with the critics at the time, man. This movie is dog shit.
I don't understand how this happened. How are we on completely different sides about this movie?
No, and to me, I was like, I am finding Woody Allen's character insufferable in this movie.
And I was the opposite. I'm like, I'm finally appreciating the female characters in this movie.
Okay, no, yes, this is the thing. I wanted to be like, okay, you want to talk about terrible female characters? Unlike in most Woody Allen movies, this movie, these are what I call terrible female characters.
No, they're
these are bad female characters.
To me,
I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I'm so glad we feel differently, honey. You have no idea, because you also want to understand. I want you sticking up for this, but you gotta understand. It makes me a little happy to not like this movie.
I know you. I feel like you like being a contrarian.
No.
In this case, like you're a contrarian to your own self.
Well, and it's because we clearly. I know I feel a little touchy about Woody Allen in a way. He's a very important filmmaker to me.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to do a lot of throat clearing with him. That's very annoying. But we kind of just conceived of this way to sort of backdoor shove him into the podcast in a way where he fits perfectly, but where we don't have to do a whole Woody Allen episode to start with.
Yeah. I mean, we will cover more.
Of course
Woody
we
Allen
will. Yes. But like this is a way of kind of
dipping a toe in
while and shoving him at the end of an episode. But I'm also kind of happy to not like this movie because I think this movie is. I am sort of seeing what people talk about when they're talking about like finding Woody Allen infuriating in a movie.
Okay, what did you find infuriating about him in this movie, and why did you not like the female characters in this movie?
They were nothing. It's not that I find him insufferable. It's that, like, I do think that he's trying to present these little meet cute moments that he has with these women as him being kind of predatory because, like, they can't help but be blinded by his huge celebrity. Which Woody Allen realizes that's a big part of why he was able to have a pretty amazing romantic history if you look at what he looks like. And so just seeing the fact that he is using his celebrity and these women are just sort of tongue-tied by him and they immediately find him charming. It's annoying to me that he is so successful. And he wanted to make this movie about a person who's very successful. That's the reason to do it about a director who's kind of like him. I think that's the essence of the 8.5 is he wanted to do a movie about like successful people don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And how successful the character is kind of what makes me find him so insufferable. He's just sort of blithely using these women and like he's projecting onto them. He doesn't ever find out anything about them. The moment with Dory sitting on the floor, that's a truly empty moment to me. To you, that captures what he's going for, which is just like those little moments in life, right? And to me, it's weird because it sounds shallow of me saying this, but it's just like he's just like looking at his pretty girlfriend sitting on the ground and being like, life is okay. Like,
and for me, it wasn't about. It didn't have to capture anything in particular. It was just the moment when you feel happy being with somebody you love and you just feel an immense amount of love. And I wasn't thinking, oh, look how pretty my girlfriend is. I was thinking, look how much in love I am in this exact moment, even though the relationship isn't great in other ways. Like, I do just feel so much love right now. I'm overwhelmed by it. And
that's beautiful.
I didn't
that you
need
feel
it.
that way.
I didn't need it to be like a big complex thing. It was experiential for me.
That's exactly what he's going for.
In terms of why the women liked him, yeah, like Pauline Kael was bothered by that. She's like, we are not given any reason as to why these women are going for him. But I was putting that out of my mind. That was part of the whole thing I was trying to do about just thinking about the female characters. Like, I'm assuming in this case, he's a big director. That's the draw.
He's
with
Woody
the
Allen.
Daisy thing, with the Daisy thing, she seemed very uninterested being at his film gala or whatever.
Right.
She was just like bored. And I think she said like, I'm hungry or something like that. And so I feel like for her, it was like she didn't give a shit. And now that he's paying attention to her and that he liked her, that was a thing that made her interested. But it didn't even matter to me. I'm like, I'm going to throw out the reason as to why they're interested in him. I'm just going to think about how they're presented. And I thought that they were each like, they had full stuff going on. I mean, granted, I did think that Dory and Isabel were the same person throughout half the movie. So I guess they weren't distinct enough.
They were trying to be presented as very different, too, in the movie.
Yeah, and I didn't fully get that. But I am now that I but that was also just like I straight up couldn't tell them apart visually. So that's on me a little bit.
They look pretty different.
I feel like they look the same, but
okay, sure.
Keep in mind that I thought Dory and Isabel were the same person. So maybe I'm like mixing up some of their attributes. But I felt like Dory was painted as a person who's conceited, but seductive and charming and witty, who really struggled with mental health. So she had like a serious issue going on, completely independent of Woody.
But he's like really thinking about how her mental illness is like such a problem for him.
I didn't even think that was presenting it that way. I felt like he's like, I want to be with her despite her mental illness. Like, I really related to the way her mental illness was presented.
I love that you're saying this right now. This makes me very happy.
Because, like, I feel like I've been in her position and I've, like, totally been, you know, the person who's hard to deal with when I'm going through something. So I just really liked the way it was presented, to be totally honest. And like when he visits her in the mental institution, I felt like she was barely engaging with him. She's just really like going through her own shit. Like, to me, she was going through her own stuff. And Sandy was there loving her throughout it. But she was in her own world and he was drawn to her universe. I really liked that these women had their own things going on. Like, so I want to keep going through the different women. Isabel, she's very independent. Like, she leaves her husband, but she's like, I don't know that I'm ready to move in with you. Like, that seemed like she just realized she needed to leave her husband. She wasn't necessarily leaving her husband for Sandy.
Right.
And she has her own kids. She is perfectly willing to not move in with Sandy. She's got her own thing going on, that she's ending her marriage, keeping her family together. And I thought she was independent, she was smart and intuitive. Like, when she's saying, like, I don't have to move in right now, it's also like her realizing, you're going to be freaked out about this. Like, you're getting freaked out a little bit. Like, I'm sensing that you're getting freaked out and we don't need to do that. Like, don't freak out. Like, I don't need to be moving in right away, you know? So I think she's intuitive. And is she the one who was the former political activist?
Yeah, because he's like, I can't even imagine you. You know, you're so perfect and sweet and nice. Because she's French.
Yeah.
And she's a May 68er.
And then Daisy is reminiscent of Dory and has this
How?
Oh, I got it entirely.
You did? She just has dark hair.
No, it wasn't about that. It was her mood. I 100% saw it. She was downbeat.
I guess you share Woody's deep intuitive understanding about these women.
I just felt like Dory's mental health struggles. Like, Daisy also seemed depressed. That's what it was. Daisy is depressed like Dory was depressed. Daisy was downbeat and artistic and seductive in a certain way, like confident. And then there was that funny scene where she was like talking on the phone. She's like talking about how she's got this other drama going on in her life where her ex, who she had an affair with, who was a woman, called her while she was staying with her boyfriend. And she's like, oh shit, I gotta deal with this. And then she said something about having herpes, but you couldn't tell if she like faked that so she could get out of having sex or if she actually had it. So anyways, she's going through her own shit. She's got her own personal life going on.
Yeah.
And she, to me, also felt like a very realized character. It doesn't matter to me that they didn't have a lot of time spent on each of them in terms of what they're experiencing and reacting to in the movie. They felt like actual characters to me way more so than perhaps any of the other 8.5 movies.
He just made Interiors, which is a movie that's all women, almost all women, and they're all wildly specific. They get very interesting stuff to say. They do, fascinating things. They act in ways that make sense, but are also curious sometimes. These people, I didn't get any sense of who they were other than in relationship to him. And I thought that was on purpose, was my point. Like, I thought that he was I thought he was deliberately taking away characterization just to make them easier to show that he's projecting on them. But
I disagree. I think that he wasn't necessarily making a big point about each of their personalities at all, but I think that he is able to achieve in this movie, at the very least, giving them personalities even with very little time spent on them in the movie. Okay, so I really liked this movie and you didn't. We got plenty of other stuff to talk about.
Yes, tons. I think this movie has amazing sequences. Very memorable. This movie's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. So
Yes.
Gordon Willis was a cinematographer. He's Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
We've discussed him already on our All the President's Men episode.
Mm-hmm.
He also is the cinematographer for The Godfather, and he worked with Woody Allen quite a lot. And yes, this movie is gorgeous. Of all the 8.5 spin-offs that we've discussed so far, this is the only one that comes close to achieving some of the amazing visuals that the original 8.5 did. I still think the original 8.5 is way more visually astounding, but this one is quite lovely. My favorite sequence is the UFO party scene. That, to me, was the thing that pushed this movie over the edge as something that I was like, no, I'm on board for this movie. Like, you got a UFO party? Awesome.
Yeah.
You're gonna fake some fucking aliens? I love that. I love that shit. I love that surrealist stuff, but especially that fun aesthetic of it being a UFO party and lights in a field somewhere where people are just having a good time. And you're like, why are you all here? It's like, I don't know, kind of like that Big Fish-esque village party thing. I know people don't love Big Fish. I love that movie. But I like that aesthetic a lot, so I love the UFO scene. What are some other scenes that you liked?
Well, I pointed at that one shot where it's just this door frame leading into his hotel room or whatever, and he's calling Isabel to have her come, and the only thing you can see of him in frame is his hand dangling sunglasses into the door frame. It just tells you so much in that visual image, and it's subtle, but it's beautiful. I would agree that it's definitely not as visually stunning as 8.5. There's certainly some camera moves in 8.5. You can't really match, and 8.5 obviously is shot on a soundstage, so it's like a very controlled environment. But Woody, stylistically is pretty famous for long master shots. He doesn't like to shoot a lot of coverage. He likes to shoot scenes kind of like they're plays. Sometimes, like, he'll just follow people, and, there'll often be moments in a scene where characters are talking and then one will drop a bomb on the other one and the other one's like, what? You doing that? Oh, okay. And then you sort of watch a person go through a new realization. Like they do this with when he finds out that Isabel's left her husband and they have like this long walk towards the camera where you sort of see them go through different states of emotions. And Woody along with Willis, who, by the way, they're in a bit of a black and white period right now because Manhattan is the movie they just did. Can we take a second to talk about the black and white?
Well, it's doing 8.5, so I have no problems with this black and white.
Do you have problems with Manhattan black and white?
I'll have to rewatch Manhattan. If you have not listened to our podcast a lot, I have issues when a movie's in black and white just for the sake of making it seem artsier. To me, I want there to be a specific reason as to why it's in black and white. I want it to be justified. And in this case, it is doing the 8.5 thing, and it is gorgeous. That's another good reason, I guess.
Yeah, it's evoking... But I would say it's evoking a certain kind of pretentiousness because this is a director that's a bit of a Sullivan's Travels kind of director because he's wanting to transition away from comedies to serious films.
Yes.
And he's got all these pictures of like the Viet Cong execution writ large in the back of his apartment. Like he's got this crazy apartment that has these giant blown up photographs of really dark shit that's kind of change depending on his mood. Mm-hmm. I think it's meant to evoke this guy who's in a very like, I'm serious right now mode, even though he can't really pull it off. But I also think that there's a certain amount of like, with Manhattan, the goal was, they're like, what if we can shoot an epic in widescreen that's not about war? It's about just human relationships in a big city. And, there's always a reason that you could argue. You could argue that it's a bit of a highfalutin reason. But I think also it's just, black and white is a beautiful aesthetic that these people know how to achieve. And this has a very flat affect where you'll have a lot of conversations happening in the foreground. And then in the background, there's a lot of chicken fat. There's a lot of people always rushing around. This is set at a retrospective outing where he's getting honored, and so there's a lot of people around.
Small town where they're showing his movies.
Yeah,
and everybody's there to celebrate him.
And there's a sort of running joke of the movie, the central bit, which to me kind of wears rather thin.
I agree with
I
this.
would say is just people coming up to him and wanting to give him stuff and compliment him and misunderstand his meaning and project stuff onto him, and him just kind of having to glad hand them and be like, yeah, great, I'm glad you like the movies, but he basically thinks they're all idiots. Like, I think a lot of the problem people have with this movie was that it seems to have a bit of a contempt for the audience, you could argue.
Yeah, that's Pauline Kael's big thing, is she feels like it criticizes his audience and his fans too much. She says, in Stardust Memories, Woody Allen degrades the people who respond to his work and presents himself as their victims.
Now, I think that's a bit of a misreading, arguably.
Yeah, she says, Sandy is superior to all those who talk about his work. If they like his comedies, it's for freakish reasons, and he shows them up as posers and phonies. And if they don't like his serious work, it's because they're too stupid to understand it. He anticipates almost anything you might say about Stardust Memories and ridicules you for it. And yeah, I do feel like that could be a misreading. I feel like he's maybe more ridiculing himself rather than the audience. But she does feel like all the audience members are presented in a way that they look very grotesque, but also very Jewish.
Right.
And Pauline Kael, who is herself maybe not an observant
but rather
Jewish
sensitive
person,
about
but very
Jewish
sensitive to Jewish
portrayals and things.
Yeah. She really disliked the way she feels like. She has this quote: he's trying to stake out his claim to be an artist like Fellini or Bergman, to be accepted in the serious Gentile artists club. And he sees the public as Jews trying to shove him back down in the Jewish clowns club. So her viewing this portrayal of the audience as like him viewing his audience being Jewish as lesser than when he's aspiring to more like non-Jewish artistic club thing. And I think that's a little unfair. I think she's very sensitive to this type of thing. Yeah. She does point out that the only characters in the film who aren't pushing for anything are the three female characters who are not Jewish. So she dislikes that.
So the movie sets up a very 8.5-esque dream sequence.
Yes.
At the beginning. Woody he's on a train, which is very Fellini. Trains.
Okay, this is actually really important.
Okay.
I brought up earlier, I believe, that in the 8.5 episode, that the original ending of 8.5 was supposed to be the Fellini stand-in, Guido, surrounded by all these people in his life on a train, and he has this breakthrough realization about what life is all about. And then it all fades, and he loses that realization. He feels the realization of its huge breakthrough slipping away from him. He's on this train with his wife, and they go into a dark tunnel, and it evokes suicide, perhaps. And he changed that ending because it was thought to be too dark.
Right.
To an ending where everybody is holding hands, and there's music playing. And basically jazz heaven.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So they're all singing and happy together. The movie Stardust Memories opens with him on a train, and it's very Fellini-esque, just the way that 8.5 opens with Guido in traffic freaking out and everybody's looking weird and stuff. The same thing's happening to him, but on a train. I think of all of the 8.5 movies we've discussed so far, he does that 8.5 opening the most directly and the best. Alice in Wonderland does it as well, but it's more directly done in Stardust Memories.
Woody is a master filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like he is basically on the level as Fellini. I would say Woody's made many more great movies than Fellini ever did.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are masterpieces the way that 8.5 is a masterpiece, but he is
he's on the level, I would say. I mean, he's far better than Mazursky and Fosse as a visual stylist or a filmmaker even.
Yeah, but talking through this opening.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, he's on this train and realizes that there's another train next to him where it's a bunch of happy people. They're successful.
Happy, pretty people.
They're pretty, and like one of them's holding an Oscar or something
Sharon
like that.
Stone in her first film role.
Really?
Is the pretty chick that looks over at him and kisses the window.
And he's like, I belong on that train.
Right.
Like, I'm on the wrong train.
Yeah.
And the conductor's like, no. And so his train gets dropped off at the garbage heap or something. And they're walking through this garbage heap. And it's like kind of depressing. It turns out what you just watched is the ending of his current film.
That's not the ending of that sequence, though.
Keep going.
No. So he and the disgusting people get dropped off the garbage dump, and then the pretty people get dropped off at the garbage dump too.
Okay.
So the point is very clearly like
we all end up in the same
It doesn't
place.
matter, right? So
okay, thank you. That's a good point. So Stardust Memories has the meta aspect of 8.5
Stardust
for
Memories,
sure.
which, by the way, can I just jump in here because there's a great part of the Pauline Kael review where she just says, Stardust Memories, terrible title, which I wholeheartedly agree.
I don't think it's a terrible title.
It's
I don't think
ridiculous. What the fuck does it have to do with anything?
it's Stardust Theater is the name of the theater where he's having the retrospective, and Stardust Memories, it's all a riff on this song called Stardust. I'm not saying I love this title.
But Woody Allen is honestly one of the greatest titlers of movies in history. And I would say this is a bottom 5 title.
It is, to me, funny that Pauline Kael was like, terrible title.
No, it's so funny.
It was hilarious reading that.
Yeah, she's just like, she's on a different point, and she just goes, in Stardust Memories, terrible title. Which it doesn't evoke the movie that I think of when I think of this movie. And that's, I think, a big part of why I didn't even watch this movie till very late. I didn't even realize the movie existed till very late in my Woody Allen thing. Anyways, in Stardust Memories.
Back to the opening scene where, so they're on the train, they get taken to the dump heap. Turns out that is the ending to the current film that Sandy, the director, just made. Throughout the course of the film, people are trying to convince him to change the ending to be more happy, and that instead of taking them to the dump heap, they end up in jazz heaven, where there's a bunch of music playing, and they're like, oh, we're jazz heaven. So this is a direct reference to what happened with 8.5, where the ending of 8.5 was changed.
It's a great point.
From a depressing train scene to everybody ends up in like happy jazz music scene. I feel like it also might be a reference to All That Jazz.
That's interesting.
Which came up before.
Yeah, I mean, Woody makes movies fast,
yeah.
So he could have been drafting off of All That Jazz.
I also feel like there was like a nod to Alice in Wonderland with the childhood friend trying to like reach out to him. I wasn't quite sure.
I do feel that's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of like that because that is something that Woody is one of the most interested in luck of filmmakers. Match Point is all about this.
Actually, I do. What he says to the friend, I do think is very poignant for how we view Woody Allen currently. The childhood friend is like, oh man, you're this big deal, and I'm just like this nobody. And Woody, sorry, I keep saying Woody, and I do recognize that Woody and Sandy are not the same character. So sorry about that. So Sandy, the childhood friend, is saying all this stuff like, oh, Sandy, you're so successful. And Sandy says he's just lucky that he lives in a time and place where comedy is valued. And society could change just like that.
Right.
And he snaps his fingers. And I do feel like that did happen to a certain degree to Woody. So it feels very prescient.
No, I think you're right. And again, like I don't think that Woody was in a crisis like this at this moment. Mm-hmm. Like he'd already made the shift to a different kind of movie. Are there really people in 1980 coming up to Woody saying, like, I strongly prefer Sleeper to Annie Hall in Manhattan? Manhattan was, like, the biggest hit of his career. Do you know what I mean? Like, was this really something that,
it must have been. Throughout the whole film, it is annoying how much this is repeated. Throughout the whole film, everybody's like, I prefer your funnier stuff.
I don't think this is how Woody felt at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that this is I don't think he was in crisis about this stuff. I suspect that the response to this movie made him change direction in a way that I think was good for him. I think that Woody, in this period, he's gotten to this place where he's the filmmaker that everybody imagines themselves being in their head. They're like, what if I just make a structureless treatise on love and life and relationships and my thoughts about art? And I think he became just a much better and more disciplined screenwriter. What he did after this was he shrunk his gaze to smaller themes that weren't just him trying to do a whole Guernica epic about everything that he's thinking about stuff. It's just like really abstract art that he's making in these movies, I would say. Like something like Stardust Memories is way harder to decipher than the movies that he made after this, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that that's why I'm drawn to it, is because I love a big meandering movie that isn't saying anything particular, but is just kind of being inspired by different stuff to give us different images and capture small moments in a life. I love that shit. I love that is what 8.5 inspired in these filmmakers. It was just a really creative prompt to explore a super artistic presentation of a life.
It's funny because you could already argue that he'd already gotten a certain version of his Fellini inspiration out in Annie Hall. Like, Annie Hall is itself kind of influenced, I would say, by this maximalist view of not having to follow any of the rules of plot structure, and you can jump around in time. Like, I really think Annie Hall is quite indebted to 8.5 anyways. It almost feels like there's a certain aspect to the him doing an 8.5 thing in this movie. It's not like I want to feel like that's gilding the lily. It's more like it feels like that was the whole idea. Was just like, well, where haven't I gone? What if I do like an explicit 8.5 riff? You know?
That's why I said like when we think about what this movie is about, I felt like it was about his being pulled between two different women, and it's just doing the 8.5 thing.
Yeah.
And I'm here for that.
Good. I'm really glad that you are. Like, this movie has undergone a critical reappraisal. People, I think, view this as one of his better films now.
Yeah.
And would you say this is up there for you as far as
Yes.
Woody Allen goes? Yes.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating. I do find that with me, sometimes when you get these movies that there was a certain kind of way that critics looked at it at the time, and then they get looked at it in a different way, I do think oftentimes I'm finding myself agreeing with the critics at the time. Maybe I'm just like really good at putting myself in the position of history, but it's difficult for me, especially because like I watched so many like lesser Woody Allen movies that to me were much more satisfying in their way because they were not biting off more than they could chew. And this movie feels very thin to me. I love little shots from it, but it's all very unsatisfying in a way.
I can't help but be drawn to maximalist, empty, stylistic, structural movies. The longer I exist as a film buff, the more appreciation I have for smaller, more subtle stories, such as maybe the other Woody Allen movies that you like more. But the thing that first made me fall in love with movies are things like 8.5, that
Right.
big, empty, maximalist style. It is a little bit in my roots as a film lover, and I can't deny that.
And I think that that's great. I'm glad that this scratched that itch for you. You're giving Woody what he wants. A big thing that he thinks people misinterpreted about this movie is like they think that he has this relationship to his fans, which I don't think he does. Like Woody famously, he thinks he's never made a great movie, which is bullshit. But like he's pretty hard on a lot of his big movies. Like he doesn't like Annie Hall that much. He doesn't like Manhattan that much. I kind of agree with him. I think that they're pretty overrated. But this is one that he does stick up for and that he thinks people really got wrong. He was like, all I was trying to do was make a movie about how the grass is always greener. You know, you can be as successful as you possibly want to be, and it's not going to fix your life. And that's in there. But I don't know if that's the overriding impression that I come away with about
same.
this movie. So I do think that he kind of failed in what he was going for a little bit.
Yeah, and that's okay. I still really like it.
No, I know. But I'm saying I think that he has a relatively clear-eyed view of a lot of his work, and yet I still do think this one, I think he was struck a little bit by the critical. It was kind of a heel turn. Like the fact that people were so up his ass, and then on this movie they were all like, "Fuck this!"
Yeah, the Pauline Kael review in particular,
Yes.
like it really tore him a new asshole.
Which I
And
think that ruined their friendship,
it
right?
did,
Yeah.
and she said that regretfully.
Yeah.
And like one person was like, "Oh man, he took that really personally. You know, he took that too personally." And she's like, "No, my review was pretty personal."
Yeah. No, I mean, she goes after Manhattan, which is a movie that I think was pretty overrated and has always been a little confounding and confusing to me. What is the line that she says? Only Woody Allen could make a man having a predilection for teenagers some kind of quest for meaning or something like that. Like it's just like,
which is like, yep.
she shot him right in the heart. Like
Yeah.
she got him there, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, and they used to be pretty chummy, which
Yeah.
is kind of a shame. And,
Yeah,
but
it is
then
a
she
shame.
defended him later on when he got accused.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Yeah, Pauline Kael said about the, Stardust Memories, she's good at zingers. She says, if Woody Allen finds success very upsetting and wishes the public would go away, this picture should help him stop worrying.
And it did. I mean, this movie is the demarcation place of like Woody is no longer close to the center of the culture after this. And I think it really helped him to not be.
Yeah, so I feel like he made Stardust Memories in a similar place in his career as Fellini making 8.5.
It was his 9th film.
But the difference,
So that was clearly on his mind.
yeah, but the difference is that Fellini's was success.
Yeah.
And Stardust Memories was not.
Yes.
And it made him pull back and tighten up.
Do you think this movie probably caused the death of people making their 8.5 riffs?
I mean, there's still 8.5 stuff. Like, what about that Oblivion one? Living in Oblivion?
Yeah, but that's a little different.
It is a little
I would say it's
different.
pretty
It is a little
different from 8.5.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. I feel like 8.5 will always still be something people will dip back into. I don't even want to think about how many film student
Right.
movies nobody's ever seen that have been 8.5 ripoffs. I'm sure that is like just so eye-rolly to any film professor who has to watch their students go through their own 8.5 journey.
I actually kind of could be down for that. That actually kind of sounds funny.
Not to me.
You don't think so?
Maybe I've been to too many film festivals.
Yeah, perhaps it would be too cute. Can I actually do dueling quotes?
Yeah.
Janet Maslin, a couple of paragraphs actually that I kind of want to read.
Who's that?
She was another film critic of the time.
Oh my God, there's more than one female film critic at the
There
time?
were multiple ones. This film has Judith Crist in it.
I was being sarcastic, but I actually don't know their names.
Yeah, this movie has Judith Crist in it, and most people seem to think that the retreat that he's going on is based on Judith Crist's actual... What do they call them?
Retrospectives?
No, but like she would have these events like this.
I don't know.
And she's in it. She's in the movie, so it's it's clearly Judith Crist. Anyways, but this is a third.
I don't know who that is either. I'm a bad feminist.
Yeah.
I'm a bad feminist film fan.
You only like Pauline Kael, who's ridiculous. Anyway, so I think this is a pretty good. I'm gonna just kind of go into her analysis. So many scenes here serve as pale echoes of Annie Hall that the effect is overpoweringly sad. As Alvy, the main character in Annie Hall, chased lobsters around his kitchen, Sandy chases a pigeon. Sandy gets sick to his stomach under stress, just as Alvy did. I totally, fully noticed this.
I also noticed the pigeon lobster thing.
Yeah, right. And the moment where he starts to get sick, when he gets nervous and stuff like that, it's like exactly the same thing. And I think the kid who plays young Sandy is the same kid as Alvy, or they got a remarkably similar kid. I think he uses his parents, too, his same mom, too. His confidant about his troubles with women is Tony Roberts once again, and when the film students speak up, they're photographed in a style that recalls Alvy's grade school classmates in their schoolroom. This is totally true. And Sandy is still asking the same big questions Alvy asked about what is life for and whether it's possible to love anyone. He's still not getting any answers. Far from repeating himself carelessly, Mr. Allen appears to be using these echoes to emphasize those aspects of Sandy that have worn thin. In the midst of a desperately crowded movie, it takes 3 women, Charlotte Rampling, Jessica Harper, and Marie-Christine Barrault, to offer a composite version of what Diane Keaton offered in Annie Hall. Sandy's a tired, unsympathetic figure standing alone. Far more than the Fellini overtones, these shades of Annie Hall give the present film the stylized wistfulness that lingers longer than the laughs. And I really do think that. I mean, this is a movie that's really in conversation with other Woody Allen work, as well as foreign films. Because it's also got a little touch of Wild Strawberries, we should say.
Yeah, and they go see Bicycle Thieves.
There's a number of fun little filmmaking touches. Like there's the great part where he walks up to Dory and she slaps him. And then the clapboard comes up and they laugh about it.
Yeah.
It was like it was in a movie.
Right.
It wasn't real.
That's a story. Was an actress.
A lot of cool moments like this where he's really playing with the form in a way that's very satisfying. And again, to bring back the Mazursky, Allen is a master of jump cuts. And he really utilizes the jump cuts expertly, only in certain sequences where they're maximally impactful. They're very sad when he's depicting Dory in the mental institution.
Yeah.
And they just keep cutting back to her saying the same thing in different ways. It's just, this is a guy who really knows how to use these filmmaking techniques. He will say, I'm working with Gordon Willis and also his editor, Susan E. Morris. He's saying, these are the people that make me look like a good filmmaker, which obviously is a little bit of self-deprecation. All the President's Men isn't quite as beautiful as this, I would say. He's got a great eye. And he has a real cinematic imagination. I mean, this movie is famously full of weird-looking people. And, he scoured casting agencies and random people on the street. I read this one story by this guy who was like, the one movie I'm in is Stardust Memories. And I was a reviewer. Woody knew me. He saw me on the street, and he was like, my agent's going to give you a call. And he put me in the movie and he's like, I'm in the ugly train. And
oh, man.
He's like, and so I see this movie and I go to a screening where it's all these weird looking people who've been invited to go to the screening of this movie.
I just didn't notice that was the thing about this movie.
It's kind of a famous part because I think it's also there's a bit of a Fellini-esque aspect to it of having weird looking people, like a bunch of a crowd of strange, individual looking people. But yes, this guy, he's like, I'm in the ugly train. I'm seeing this movie with a bunch of ugly people. We're all kind of like, this movie kind of sucks. I don't really like this movie. And I'm just an ugly person in it. So
that's sad.
I think he was laughing it off, but it's just funny. He's like, this movie's not very good. But yeah, and I think them looking all weird and asking stupid questions and laughing too hard at his jokes, I think that's a form of him being self-deprecating. It doesn't totally read to me like they're idiots. It reads to me like his life is constantly trying to please people, and they're either way too eagerly pleased or never pleased with anything, and they don't give them any privacy,
I do think it was meant to be more self-deprecating, but in the process, it insulted the fans. Can we briefly discuss the new Hollywood aspects of Stardust Memories?
Sure. I mean, I think it's
it's obviously incredibly influenced by foreign films.
Yeah, so being influenced by European New Wave. Yeah, for sure.
Woody Allen is, to me, the ultimate example of the thing that I always talk about weird-looking people in movies.
Yep. Not your typical hero, not your typical main character.
Yeah.
It deals with sexuality in a frank way.
There's some surprise nudity in this film. Like, one of the ladies throws up a porno mag in the middle of a shot.
Oh, yeah.
When they're talking, and I'm like, oh, well, very explicit nudity for a Woody Allen film.
It's also meta, so it's got that intellectual challenging aspect that...
quote-unquote challenging.
It's a movie within a movie within a movie, so...
Right, and that's the thing. It's a movie that's depicting where film culture is at this point. We're at this point where people are having retrospectives of films.
Yeah.
The fact that it's depicting a contemporary practice of Judith Christ's and showing this intelligentsia being interested in filmmaking.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, this whole thing, the quote-unquote intelligentsia, the New York intelligentsia or whatever, being interested in film, this is the whole reason why Woody Allen thrived during the 70s, there was a group of people, a large group of people, not just a weird, little cadre of people at the Algonquin Round Table discussing film, but it was a more mainstream thing for, people to examine the world through.
And Pauline Kael was smack dab in the middle of that. She would host dinner parties all the time.
Yeah.
For people to just come and chat about film and
stuff. Right, exactly. I mean, and Woody is one of these... Woody ate dinner at Maxine's in New York for every night for 10 years. And so he was very much in the mix of, wanting to chop it up with major figures of the time. Woody had a lot of respect for other filmmakers. He's always very self-deprecating and would never say that any of his movies come close to the level of something like Scorsese or Altman or Bergman or anybody like that. He considers himself a fringe member of these groups.
He's squarely a New Hollywood director, but his own version of it.
He's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And he's got this amazing breakthrough trajectory in the 70s. Annie Hall beat Star Wars for Best Picture.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite Best Picture winner of all time, especially given that it beat Star Wars. He was at the center of the conversation of movies stretching and getting to new places. Okay, so you want to talk about all the movies now?
As I said before, I love the idea of 8.5 being a prompt. These directors were able to creatively take their own spin of it. And I think each one we've looked at so far has been so unique and brought something different to the table. And I really enjoy each of these 8.5 spin-offs. I still think the original 8.5 is a masterpiece and none of these other ones are masterpieces, but I'm really happy they exist.
Yeah, I mean, and again, sorry to bring back just to Stardust Memories is... that movie is only really one of them that's visually doing 8.5, and it's, you could argue that it is itself parodying 8.5, more akin to the part of Alice in Wonderland where he's doing an 8.5 sequence.
Yeah.
Right? This is a movie that's...
The whole thing is oh, here's my 8.5 movie.
It's very, very pointedly saying, I'm doing an 8.5 thing, as opposed to these other movies where you could maybe ding them for having their 8.5 influence.
Yeah.
In a way that you couldn't with this one because it's putting it so front-loaded.
Those other movies are,
derivative of 8.5.
Yeah, but they are their own type of movie.
Yes.
And this is...
Woody Allen meets 8.5.
You can't describe it as anything but Woody Allen's 8.5.
Yeah. Were there any things that surprised you about how you would feel about these movies? I think at this point, on Letterboxd, All That Jazz has the same rating as 8.5. Pretty much. I would say All That Jazz is at this point as canonical a film, if not maybe more so, to more film people than 8.5 itself.
Well, but maybe that's just because it's not as challenging.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's
it's not as artsy and experimental.
I guess. I think it also represents that movie, All That Jazz, is kind of the purest Fosse artistic statement in a way that you could almost argue 8.5 is Fellini's, but it's also, Fellini has other stuff in it. On Record, you could say is just as Fellini-esque.
Yeah, well, that to me means that Fellini is a better filmmaker because he can make all these different types of films that are Fellini-esque. He doesn't need to have just this one pinnacle of Fellini.
No, well, I think that's more a case of the fact that Fosse died and didn't make that many movies.
Sure.
But this is nobody's quintessential Woody Allen movie. Stardust Memories.
Yeah.
Alex in Wonderland is nobody's quintessential Paul Mazursky movie.
But
although it could be. I mean, it's really good.
it is really good.
I think.
But I see your point that All That Jazz is like the quintessential Bob Fosse movie.
Yeah, it's a real statement about him.
It's nothing to say about like comparing the qualities of all 4 of these movies to each other. It's just what these movies represent for each of the directors.
If you want to get Bob Fosse, I would point them to All That Jazz. I guess I would say the same thing about Fellini. A lot of, there's, in Annie Hall, there's the whole, the Marshall McLuhan conversation starts with he's talking about Fellini. And he says, like, I didn't really like 8.5, but I strongly preferred La Strada and other things like that. There's a real arguments for other Fellinis.
You want to Cold Stone them all?
You want to just go? We're ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's do it. Okay. So Cold Stone, you might think that it's a little bit incongruous to compare movies and Cold Stone Creamery sizes, but over here at Kale Your Idols, it's just kind of the way we do things. I worked at Cold Stone Creamery. Their sizes are like it, love it, and gotta have it. We reappropriated the scale to talk about movies that we at least like. If we like the movie, we either like it, love it, or gotta have it. If we didn't like the movie, we say it doesn't make the scale, or we come up with some cutesy little explanation for it. So 8.5. Is this a like it, love it, or gotta have it?
Gotta have it.
It's also a gotta have it for me. Anything you really want to say about it?
I mean, I've got a love it, hate it relationship with it because Guido is so annoying, but I can't deny that it's a gotta have it.
Yeah, I mean, it just is. It's the first, it's the best, the deepest, it's the most beautiful, it's the most satisfying of all of these.
Yeah.
Alex in Wonderland.
It's a like it. It's a gem. It really is. But because it's like a director living in Hollywood, the Hollywood aspect to me holds it back as being anything more than a like it.
But that's also the one movie, these ones, that really is talking about the new Hollywood movement.
Yes.
So being a new Hollywood person, that doesn't mitigate some of the Hollywood?
No, look, I really like that movie a lot. It's a high like it, but I'm not going to be super excited to keep watching it. Every time I watch it, I will be like, oh, right, I do really like this.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be itching to put it on.
I want to solidify it for myself in saying it's a love it.
Good.
It's got so many human moments. The moments with the kids, Mazursky's performance himself, just a lot of the weirdness of it, and this great Donald Sutherland central character. It's a love it. I love this movie. I'm charmed by it. It's an aesthetic that I'm not always going to be going in for. I mean, a visual aesthetic that I'm not always going to go in for. But in Alice in Wonderland, the hippiness meshes with the high levels of success of the main character. A charmingly brittle and yet lovable portrait of all this stuff for me.
Yeah. I really want everybody to check it out, so I'm glad you gave it a love it.
Yeah, I think it's a love it. Okay, All That Jazz.
It's a like it.
Okay.
I'm not as big of an All That Jazz person. It's a like it, less of a like it than Alex in Wonderland, but it's a like it. I love the sequence. I love the dance sequences.
Most people would say it's more successful than Alex in Wonderland in a lot of ways. You view this scale as a very personal thing, right?
Yes, sometimes I take into account, like, okay, within the history of film, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, it's more of a personal thing. I'm talking about liking it, loving it, and gotta having it. I'm not talking about is it good or not. Does that make sense?
I guess if it makes sense to you, then
whether or not something is good, of course, it influences whether I like it, love it, gotta have it.
Right.
I'm not saying objective things about the movie. I'm talking about whether I like it, whether I love it, and whether I gotta have it.
I'm just trying to talk about this stuff. I'm not trying to impugn your taste, darling. I'm just saying that there's a little bit more of a tightness, I think, inherently to All That Jazz than there is to Alex in Wonderland.
I'm not a big
more
fan.
Of a completeness.
I'm not a big fan. I'm sorry. I like the dance sequences are great.
It's weird.
Not a big fan.
I'm not a big fan of the movie either, but I feel like it's kind of a gotta have it. I really hate the way the movie looks. There's so much about the movie that I don't like.
I thought you liked that brown look.
I like the nastiness of the aesthetic in concept, but this is a thing where Fosse, to me, I can't help but read Fosse as needing to nasty up an art form that I already think is great, which is musical theater. Like, I feel like Fosse thinks that that's the way to make it more relevant to today's youth or whatever or something, but I think it's a little bit nasty, but it's a gotta have it because it's All That Jazz, and it's kind of one of the most important movies of all time. It's one of the most important new Hollywood films. It's got some astounding sequences, and it's a singular image. But I don't like the movie that much. This is saying it's a gotta have it, but I don't really like it that much. And I don't. It's not even my favorite Bob Fosse movie. I probably like Sweet Charity most, which is weird. I know.
I haven't seen it, so okay.
Stardust Memories.
I loved it. It's a probational love it. I want to know how I'll feel revisiting it and with time. It is weird thinking about this scale, how much it's going to be influenced by how long, like whether or not I've seen the movie before. Like if this is my first time seeing it versus if this is a movie that's been with me my whole life, will for sure influence. I wonder if I'll ever give something a gotta have it if it's my first time watching it.
Interesting.
I don't know if I've ever given something a gotta have. Well, that's not true. I gave Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a gotta have it, I think.
You did? No, you didn't. I gave Kingdom of the Apes.
Oh, you gave it. Okay. Yeah. So have I give anything a gotta have it if it was my first time watching?
That's an interesting question, yeah.
I don't know. And I might never do that because I might be too hesitant to give away a gotta have it unless it holds a really special place. So anyways, Stardust Memories, though, it's probational. Love it. And the things that pushed over the edge for me was that I really liked the female characters, and I also just loved that UFO scene so much.
The UFO scene is the best part.
I also, personally, I thought it captured the profundity of the original 8.5 better than any of the other 8.5-esque movies we talked about today.
It certainly did that. When you just said you love the female characters, I am like blanching as if you're spraying bug spray in my face when you're saying that, because I don't know, honey. We're living in two different universes here to a certain degree. And that's what I think is very fascinating about it. Why this conversation will not end here.
Wait, comparing the female characters in this movie, in Stardust Memories,
to 8.5.
To the other, what about just all of the ones? All of the other ones?
It's worse than all of them.
I disagree.
It's way worse than all of them.
You think the 8.5 female characters are better
Absolutely.
than Stardust Memories?
They are... they are well-defined symbols for what they represent.
But symbols aren't real people.
No, but these people are fake real people.
No. Oh my God.
This is so crazy. Yeah, this is why this conversation is actually interesting, and we shouldn't shy away from it. Anyways, this movie doesn't make the scale for me. I think we're in a similar position where, like, when I first watched this movie, I probably loved it, and I was like, wow, this is what a hidden gem of Woody Allen's that I haven't seen. He's got aliens in it. Who would have thought? I'd never seen aliens in Woody Allen. Loved the Fellini-esque aspect. I thought it was a bit of a nice swing for him. Watching it this time, I was just like, he's made so many fucking better movies than this. And movies that people think are dog shit. I don't like this movie very much. I have to say, the incest talk turned me off really hard.
It was super uncomfortable.
It was bad, man. And I am a Woody Allen defender in a lot of ways. And that was like some of the most down on Woody Allen I've ever felt in my life was hearing that shit of this movie.
Yeah.
And I thought the movie was very empty. I hated the female characters. I thought this movie was rather empty. I really agree with a lot of the critics of the time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it. We're just two different people.
We are. Several different 8.5s were discussed over the summer that we've spent doing this.
Yeah. And if you made it this far in the episode, thank you. I love you. You're a hero.
I love you. Come on. What do you? Thank you for listening to the whole episode.
I'm glad you got at least one Woody Allen.
I'm really doing Scott Aukerman's impression of Woody Allen, which always starts with, "Come on, I love you. What are you talking about? Well, I mean, we're moving in together. I love you."
That concludes another exciting New Hollywood adventure. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Kale Your Idols on the podcatcher of your choice. We really appreciate ratings and reviews. They are instrumental to the growth of small podcasts like ours. So come on, guys. Rate us and review us. I don't think we've gotten a new review since August of 2023. So please leave us a review.
You're not going to do it.
It's so easy. You don't even have to say good stuff about us.
I would love a damning review where you would really call out our faults. I'm not even kidding.
I would not love that, but do what you got to do. We would love to hear from you, so please get in touch with us on Instagram, X, or you can send an email to kaleyouridols@gmail.com. We want to say thank you to the Illuminator for our logo, and thank you to ourselves for everything else. Please join us next episode where we will be celebrating spooky season as we cover the delightful comedic flick, Young Frankenstein.
Hey, Peter Fonda, who was mentioned in Alex in Wonderland. How did we do?
We blew it.